Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, January 13th. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country, and thank you to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We'd start with the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes, the council meeting from December 9th. Can I have a motion to adopt that set of minutes? Councillor Rice.
I move adoption of the minutes of the City Council meeting held December 9th, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Did anyone note any errors or omissions? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We'd move to 3.2, the minutes of the special City Council meeting, December 18th. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the minutes of the special City Council meeting held December 18th, 2013 be adopted.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Anything out of place? Seeing nothing, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And we move on to the minutes from the special City Council meeting held January 7th. Can I get a motion for that set of minutes? Councillor Logan.
I would move that the minutes of the special council meeting be adopted by council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan, for that motion. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Anything out of place? Seeing nothing, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries as well. We'd move on to the adoption of the agenda. We have one additional item, so when we have the motion, we look to adopt the agenda with the addition of item 8.3, Development Officer Appointments. So if we can have a motion to adopt the agenda with that addition. Councillor McLean?
Mayor Given, I'll move that we council adopt the agenda as presented with the addition 8.3.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion on the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries as well. Okay, now that that's all out of the way, we'll move into the delegation portion of the agenda. This is an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward and address council on any community-related matter that isn't the subject of a public hearing. We have a special section in our agenda, so if you hear about a public hearing matter, we have a special section that will handle that. But there is an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward if you'd like to address council on any other agenda item or any other community matter. So is there anybody that would like to come forward and address council? Mr. Piercy.
Just
Go ahead, guys. Introduce yourselves and
Jordan Menzies, second vice chair, Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Dan Piercy. I'm the CEO of the Grande District Chamber of Commerce. We heard this morning on the radio that, sorry, do you want me closer or further away? Okay, that item 9.31 was coming up for council today, which involves the digital billboard project of the Chamber of Commerce. Unfortunately, we weren't aware of that coming forward, but we did hear about it, so we wanted to come and chat with you if there were some concerns that you had. We weren't made aware of any concerns that you had or what direction council was going with this.
Sure. Well, just to speak to it, this council member, there was a committee meeting where the chamber presented on this. I think there was a recommendation coming from the committee to direct the mayor to write a letter of support. Typically, only council has the ability to direct the mayor to do anything, not a committee. And so that's why it's here tonight. So it needs to be ratified by council to direct the mayor to write a letter of support. So more of an internal formality. If you'd like to present on the proposal, by all means.
Well, if you'd like me to go over
Sure.
the entire proposal.
Not all council members were there at the committee meeting, so it might be worthwhile.
Okay. So I did have administration drop off a copy of the proposal. Basically, the proposal is to run a pilot project, which is a billboard in front of Center 2000. The board is a smaller digital board advertising local businesses. In addition to that, the billboard has the ability to switch into what we call an Amber Alert mode. That would allow city to access the board in the case of an Amber Alert condition or a disaster situation. They could take over the board and use it for the public good. The board is also designed in such a way that we can add signage directing people to the Visitor Information Center. So having a number of components to it, providing that addition, which we have very little advertisement at Center 2000 other than the big stripe on the side of the building, something that we've been looking at for a long period of time of trying to enhance the project. There's a map included as per the location. We understand that at some point in time, we're hoping that the province will triple that road, and we're planning on being far enough back to not interfere with that or have to have the sign moved. There is an abundance of space at that particular location. The other advantage of that location is there's lighting requirements for the pathway, which is underneath the bridge. That would bring power to that project that much closer. There's just some other information about how safe are billboards. And on the last page, this wasn't actually in the previous package, but we added it in this one. This is St. Albert Chamber of Commerce digital billboard, which sits on either end of the city of St. Albert between Highway 2 on both sides. So as far as highways go, there is provincial history with some of these going ahead. Hope that suffices. What we're looking for basically is we need to go after permission from the provincial government. The land that we're seeking to locate on is provincial land. And it would be very nice to be able to go to them with blessing from the city that you agree with this project and support it. So.
I see at least one person in the queue with questions. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. For Dan or Jordan, I brought this up last council with St. Albert when they first came in. It was like, wow, as soon as you entered the city, and I don't know if it's Messers Trail or St. Albert Trail, but it's right on their outskirts when you come in. And I mean, I like the location you picked here, but I was hoping like down the road as entryway. They're not using just for chamber. It's also welcome to St. Albert.
Yes. Once we get the pilot done, if it's successful, we would be more than interested in talking about entrances to the city with the same sort of feature.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the delegation? Councillor Rice.
A question. So what we're looking for tonight is a motion to change the recommendation so that the recommendation reads, move that council requests the mayor letter of support.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
May have come from committee saying committee, but yeah. No, in our package it says council direct mayor given provide a letter of support.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I have a question. I wasn't able to be at the committee meeting. Why has the chamber chosen this site as the site of a pilot project, and were any other sites considered?
Number one is Center 2000 has minimal signage, and it would make it the proximate location would be very handy for us. The next is this the highest traffic count location in the city.
Yeah, bumper to bumper.
Did the chamber consult at all with Muskogee Park in terms of the sign's location?
Yes, we actually have. They have not commented either way. They are aware of it. We have made one presentation to city senior staff over a year ago in regards to the project.
Thanks very much. Any further questions for the delegation? Seeing nothing, thanks very much, and getting up to speak to this item, then I'll show up. I appreciate, and my apologies again for the confusion in our process between the committee and council authorities we have. So this is, as I said, the delegation portion for anybody to come forward. I see somebody has ably taken the chair right off the bat. Please introduce yourself and be welcome.
I'm Trudy Switzer, and I'm here. I have a few questions about the meter parking on 107th Avenue.
Sure. Please go ahead, Ms. Switzer.
Okay. Would this plan be that 107th Avenue and 96th Street, A Street, become part of the QE2 parking lot again? I do not think this has anything to do with the hospital staff parking. It is more about making public parking for the people who visit the hospital. What hours would the meters be in effect? Our parking permits would be of no value if the public is allowed to park up and down our avenue. The traffic would increase a great deal. What do you think putting the meters would do to our property value? Would any of you like meter parking in front of your home? The QE staff do not want to pay for parking. That is why it is causing so much trouble for the residents in this area. Put in meters at the taxpayers' expense, and they will find someplace else to park. Example, the VLA or such places. The public would be then the ones that would generate your estimated $40,000 a year. Take some of the big rocks out of the parking lot on the QE2 on 107th Avenue, and that would create more parking. Maybe use the two houses next to the parking lot owned by the QE2, tear them down, and you would have more parking. Also get rid of the boarded up house on the corner of 96A Street and 107th Avenue. The solution we have with our parking permits works just fine as it is. Why is someone wanting to change that? The residents on 107th Avenue are a little more than upset every time we turn around. We have to fight to keep our living space residential and not commercial. We have residents who have lived on 107th Avenue for 54, 48, 42, 41, 36, and 32 years. We have worked hard to keep our homes upgraded and well cared for. Now you want to make it a parking lot. Will the residents on 107th Avenue and 96A Street be notified other than a newspaper article of your great plans? Seeing as this is how we were notified just 2 days before Christmas when everybody was busy with Christmas preparations. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor McLean.
Can staff put up on just the route there that we're all talking about, this area? Can't we just find that and bring it up on screen so that everybody in council? The map?
So I think our community safety director has a map up on his display. So administration will just flip that over and then let's see the neighborhood up on screen.
There's just some questions. I know there's some with they're talking about meters, but then there's other areas that are changing of parking during the main hours.
So while administration is looking to see if they can get that map up, I'll ask if there's any other questions for the delegation.
Yeah, I have a question.
Councilor McLean, sure, go ahead.
But I wanted the map. I lived there for 10 years in that area, And that's a beautiful area, and I wish I would have bought a lot there. It became split in two, but anyways, nice lots. Some questions I had about was parking and getting to the, like, we have some nice back alleys there, if they're like graded, and there was some things brought up in the one committee meeting. And I know you're talking about not just specifically meters, but there was some talk about maybe the back alleys being done up so it'd be better access for the residents as well. Was this brought up at all, or I'm just throwing that out there? Was that even brought to your attention yet?
Nothing has been brought.
Oh,
to
paving?
attention except what was in the paper, and
Okay.
that was almost missed because of the timing, and nobody has been notified of anything.
Nothing.
And so we have all these questions like, why? Parking meters work fine, and now all of a sudden you're wanting to put, and there's two out of the group that's here tonight, there's two of us that were in Vancouver that had these, what do you call them? They're not parking meters, what do you call them? Pay for park.
Yeah, the pass
And we
thing.
had experiences in Vancouver. Our own experience was that we paid for our parking, and 15 minutes later we got a ticket. So somehow that wasn't working quite right. We had already paid for our space. The other person in this room was there, and he got a ticket because he didn't put his receipt in his window. You're not supposed to have to do that. But they said, oh, yes. So he got a ticket for that. So it doesn't work all that well either.
Okay, any further questions to the delegation? I see it. If admin, if the Director of Community Safety, I see Councillor Rice has a question as well. If the Director of Community Safety, there were a number of questions about the type of system that's going to be implemented and a few other sort of technical questions. I wonder if administration could cover some of the details from the report for the delegation. Lanti, would that be possible?
I can answer some of the questions. I have them up here on the screen. However, I can refer to this. So first of all, the resident parking permits that you have will remain in effect. So that permit is valid and will remain valid for.
But if it's open
So,
parking,
ma'am, I'm Ms. Switzer. I'm just going to, administration will answer some of the questions that you've asked.
Okay.
But it isn't an opportunity to debate with administration back and forth. So you can ask me questions and I'll ask them,
Okay.
and then he'll answer to me. It's sort of, we kind of do that just to make sure that we don't get administration and public sort of going. So Mr. Galante.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the permit, the parking permit for residents living in the affected areas will remain in effect. Parking permits exempt the permit holder from paid parking. So you can park there with your permit parking. The paid parking hours, in effect, has been recommended as part of the report that the paid parking be in effect Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The parking rates, an hourly parking rate of $1 per hour to a daily maximum of $8 is recommended. This is the same rate charged at the QE2 site hospital. The paid parking equipment, the parking meters will not be installed in the area. We may be using for parking terminals, those machines that you can buy the ticket directly from the machine. The pay terminals are not pay and display and will not require a person to return to the vehicle after paying. Pay terminals will accept coins and credit cards, and we're looking at different systems as well to pay by cell phone option, so can be done remotely as well. And in terms of snow removal, we're talking to the transportation department to make some adjustments to the frequency and hours that snow removal occurs in the affected areas. The map is there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Galante, just on that last point about the snow removal, can you speak to the intent of that?
Sure. So one of the considerations that we discussed was the snow removal and garbage collection schedule. So we met internally with the transportation department in order to coordinate the best time of the week, or perhaps during the weekends, to maintain these areas clear of snow with the new schedule.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Galante. So I think that answered a few of your questions. I understand that didn't answer all of them, but I do see Councillor Rice that has a question or comment as well. Councillor Rice?
I assume that you live on one of the yellow areas.
I live on 107th Avenue.
Okay, is that? Well, the part of 107th is also red. See, across. So you're in one of the areas up there shown in the yellow. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I have one more if I may. Do you notice a lot of all-day parkers on your street? Okay, so that controls them. Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I was a little surprised when Alberta Health came to us and was saying, actually, this area might be busier. The new hospital opens up by bringing other locations together. And I said, okay, well, depending on budgets and everything like that, and maybe you're going to be right, and hopefully you are in some ways. In some ways it won't be, but I knew it would be contentious, but there hasn't been an open house yet or anything for the neighborhood, discuss ideas, because that was discussed at the meeting, and I think that hasn't been done yet, right? That there's been nothing for the community to come together yet.
What I have said
Avoid.
tonight is all we know. Anybody that is in that area.
That has to be done.
We know nothing.
Okay. Councillor Rice?
Okay, would we not normally send out notices to all those affected?
You have,
Mr. Galante?
but we haven't had anything outside of this article that was in the paper.
So, Mr. Galante? A question from Councillor Rice?
Yeah, bylaw enforcement has been communicating with the residents in the area. I don't know to the extent of door-by-door notification at this stage, but I'm aware that they have been talking to the neighborhood in general. The same with the Q2 hospital staff. So,
Obviously, they have.
Any further questions? And questions, we do have an opportunity, obviously, during discussion debate to ask questions of administration. We have a presenter who's come today, and so an opportunity to ask her any questions about her perception. Issue? No? Anything else? Ms. Switzer, just two questions. I'm going to assume that there are others. Are you speaking on behalf of others here? Were you the one that drew the short straw? Yeah. Okay. Well, sure. Well, and so then, in fairness, and maybe by all means, if anybody else wants to come and speak to this, you're more than welcome. But if you'd prefer just to raise your hand, if you'd like, that you're here with the same sort of position as Ms. Switzer, just so that council can have an idea of who's here for. Okay. So just to, yeah, thank you very much. And that way we can know sort of who's in the crowd. Ms. Switzer, do you personally have a driveway, and do you know if the majority of residents on that street have driveways? And are they front or back?
I think most in front.
Front, okay. And the majority, you would say, do
Use the driveways?
have driveways?
I think the majority have driveways.
Okay. Councillor Rice, do you have another question?
Just one question. I'm not sure how it's going to change things in your life. If I go to visit you and I'm at a meter, I assume I can put the permit parking thing on my rear view mirror. So it shouldn't really change anything for you, should it?
Unless two people decide to park in front of my house that have paid money to park there, my permit is of no value whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I don't see anybody else in the queue, Ms. Switzer. Thanks very much for your presentation.
Yeah, nobody has like our property value. Nobody has addressed that. Like what is the meter parking going to do to our property value? Who's going to want to buy a house that you have to pay $1 at the least to park in front of?
I'll hazard a guess on that. This is a risky situation to be in, but quite often, every variety of issue that comes before council that deals with an established neighborhood, there's a perception that it will decrease property values. Whether it's a dog park or a new sidewalk or increased density in housing, I believe that in the majority of cases, there's no evidence that shows a direct correlation in any of these changes and a drop in property values. I can understand that the perception is, and the feeling, certainly as a resident, is that this will have an impact on the value of your home. I can tell you that many people in my experience, many people come to council with that same perception. And I don't know that we've ever seen it in our property assessments. So that's the best answer that I can give you. I know it doesn't address your
That would be in the assessments.
sense.
I'm talking about what we would get.
Yeah. Well, our assessment is based on market value. So the city's assessment is based on what the market is saying your home is worth, although it does typically lag 6 months to a year behind what the market is actually doing. We do go on the value of what your home is worth on the market. So that's the best answer that I can give. I know that I know that may not fit with your feeling about the issue or your sense of it, but I don't have any data at hand to show you that.
So when will we get any information on this? Any of this?
Well, council will deal with the item that came forward from the committee. So the recommendation to approve the change is on our agenda later tonight. Council will discuss and debate whether we go ahead with that. And the presentation that you made will obviously inform council members in the discussion and what we choose to do with that item that came from the committee. So the committee, for everybody that's here, the committee recommended making a change. Council as a whole hasn't seen that recommendation or that change yet. Tonight we'll discuss whether we do that or whether we take some other course of action, which could be any number of things from choosing not to do it, choosing to do it at a later date, choosing to add some other steps. Anything is essentially open at this point. So now is the perfect time for you to be coming forward with your concerns.
Okay, so when would we hear them as residents? This is our living space.
Of course.
Now, beside an article in the paper, how are we going to find out what your decision is?
In terms of the decision tonight, our council meetings
whatever the decision is about this meter part, this is what we're here for.
Well, so item, I can flip through the agenda if somebody knows off the top of their head which item it was. So I see 9.6.2 very near the end of our agenda is the item that deals with this. Everybody is more than welcome to stay for the meeting and watch and hear exactly firsthand what the discussion was. Or you can choose to go home and watch this on your computer or on Channel 7, I think, is being broadcast, or even watch it tomorrow morning because it's usually saved and posted on the city's website. So you can see any of those ways. I'm sure the local media will cover it. I imagine they'll have questions for you as you leave the room. So you're more than welcome to stay, watch the proceedings firsthand. You could look for the results in the media tomorrow, because given the fact that there's so many people here, I'm sure they'll be covering it. Or, as I said, you can look on the city's website and watch the meeting as it's been recorded. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for coming and making a presentation tonight. So is there anybody else here? We're still in the public delegation portion of our agenda. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to an item that's not a matter of a public hearing? You guys are usually here about public hearings. You're making me nervous. Go ahead, introduce yourselves and the topic you'd like to speak to.
I'm Scott Rossler. Thank you, Mayor Given. Got with me today. I'll deal with the first item on the agenda first. So I've Wade Greentree with Stone Ridge Developments as well. So we're here to address item 8.1, which is an amendment to the Stone Ridge Outline Plan. It is going forward tonight as a report. Therefore, no opportunity to speak on the public hearing. It's fairly minor. I believe Mr. Greentree wanted to do a brief presentation, but we're here basically to answer any questions you do have and reserve the opportunity to come up if you do have any questions during your discussions.
So do you want to maybe just introduce the issue? Council may need a refresher on exactly what that.
Sure. In regards to the.
Oh, and sorry guys, can you just introduce the group of you here?
Yes.
I know they are, but everybody watching might not necessarily.
I will.
That's okay.
You hang out here.
Okay, I'm the next line. So.
I'm Scott Rossler with Helix Engineering, Wade Greentree with Stone Ridge Properties.
Yep. Thank you. So, also tonight with us is Mr. Kevin Tink, one of the Stone Ridge landowners. Basically, in regards to the lane removal, we're simply asking for a small section of lane to be removed behind some semi-detached lots in Stone Ridge. And Mr. Wright will address that later. The primary motivation behind the lane removal is that we just don't think the lane fits very well with the intent and character of the Stone Ridge neighborhood. We want Stone Ridge to be a neighborhood that's distinctive and more upper end, and a lane simply does not fit with that vision. When the outline plan was originally approved, the feel and character of the area was not yet fully articulated. Now that the character, target market, and architectural style have been determined, we feel the lanes simply need to go and don't fit. Also, given the proximity to the Eastlink Center, we want to ensure that the Stone Ridge neighborhood fits in nicely with the world-class facilities located adjacent to the site. Here are some supporting reasons why we do not feel the lane fits within the neighborhood. Looking out your back window onto grass and trees is far more visually appealing than looking out onto an asphalt lane, which we feel will eventually collect cars, garbage, and will ultimately end up in a less desirable state than the landscaped area would. By removing the lane, we are able to resize the lots to 5 feet wider on average, which will allow larger semi-detached homes and more green space on the front yards. There will be less maintenance for the city in regards to snow removal and maintenance on the lane over the years. There will be no chance for residents to create illegal secondary suites or up-down duplexes in these homes by accessing the back lane. By allowing for the lane removal and wider lots, we will be requiring these homes to have a larger square footage and have attached garages, which will add more value to the area. Also, on an engineering note, there's a severe elevation change between the lane and Nav Canada's site, which poses a significant challenge in making it virtually impossible to construct the lane to the city's design standards. I trust you can see and understand our rationale for the requested change. So thank you for considering this, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
I see at least one question in the queue. Gentlemen, did you have a map? I thought, yeah, I know it's in our council package. If somebody had a map, you can set it just on that. Do you have our overhead camera, Ralph? There you go. Just so that as council members are asking the question, there you go. Put it on the X. So do you want to just sort of highlight the area that you're speaking about there?
We're talking about this portion right behind these lots, right in there. So these are the semi-detached lots, all of these. There's 30 of them. This is the Navigation Canada site. So that's the beacon, lines up directly with the runway. So right here, we have a lane goes down there, and along the back asphalt lane simply will be replaced with a grass easement instead.
Okay, thanks very much. So I see a few folks in the queue. Councillor Rice.
Of clarification, if I may, is this a report because they're outline plans?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that as opposed to a public hearing.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
It was never intended to park back in this back alley at all, like for parking for residents or anything. It was never planned for anything there.
They would have accessed the rear of their lots with the lane, yes.
There likely would have been opportunity to park on both sides, so there would have been there are provisions in the city's design and standards and manuals for front garages, rear garages on lanes and whatnot. So the opportunity was there for rear garages and parking in the rear, and also parking in the front.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the delegation? No? Okay. I think that's everything on 8.1. Right.
So again, Scott Rosser with Helix Engineering, here with Wade Palat with Copperwood Estates, developer of the Copperwood development. So here to address item 8.2, which is basically the same type of an issue. An amendment to an outline plan. Again, it is just an amendment to an outline plan, no area structure plan amendment, no land use bylaw amendment, so therefore no public hearing. The item on that agenda is actually to remove a lane. So if I'll put that up as, or to add a lane, sorry. I will put that up on the board as well.
Just while you're finding that map, how do you feel about the comments about how the lanes are going to get dirty, collect cars and garbage?
Having Wade go right before me didn't set up real well, so good job though.
I told everyone this was going to be fun.
Our group took over Copperwood's the outline plan, so we weren't involved with the planning right from the onset of this development. When we looked at it as far as development in an area and looking at kind of the city's MDP of how they want some more density, it was the only area that we could increase density that we felt would work as a good fit for the development. You can see there's an RM space to the east of it. It's hard to kind of show up on here, but in this corner of this, there's actually a good sized park that's going in here. So we felt if we were going to put a little bit more density anywhere in the development, it made more sense to put it near the park and the other multi-area. We've also increased the width of the road, I believe. Was it a,
The roads have increased just due to the city standards, so they're up to 10.5 meter width now.
so, and I realize a lot of people aren't a big fan of lanes, but we're also being crunched as a builder slash developer with affordability issues. There's literally no lane lots left available in Grand Prairie to buy right now. If you wanted to buy one, you can't get one. There's no duplex lots for sales. So we're concerned, I guess, a development group, that if we don't put some entry-level style product on the market, there's just there's nothing available for homeowners to purchase that type of product right now.
And so just to, guys, if I think you did, so where the RL is there in the bottom corner, this is what you're proposing to move to, is that correct?
Correct. And so what you look at is this would be the 116th would come up here. So we'd have an access in here, and it would be just this little loop in here that would be affected by pretty much where this line is would be the lane, and that's what would be affected by this. And so again, we felt it wouldn't create any extra congestion in the future development of the plan. It seemed like the cleanest fit, if we're going to add any kind of density anywhere in here, that it was the cleanest fit to put it in. And again, because the park was in that area, we thought it was a good fit.
Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Rice?
The map's gone away. It's not keeping going. The line shows it. Okay, see it goes there, and then it jogs over and heads up, okay?
This is the only section.
That's the only, so then it turns, and then that other straight line going up is not a lane.
No.
This actual piece up here,
That's just, okay.
and there is actually a park.
And where would the frontage of those houses be?
Street.
Yeah.
Looking that way, where the L is,
Northwest.
basically.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
L
Lots on both
or,
sides.
yeah, the L or the facing the other direction.
Yeah, well, okay.
This might be a little bit easier map to see. So this is the lane right there that we're talking
Oh, okay, yep, that makes more sense, thank you.
And that's a park at the north end of that.
about. Park to the north, tried to keep the lane, maintenance department like straight through the lanes. So it's the only one that fits.
Councillor Thiessen?
Is there any, I guess, parking besides frontal street parking that'll be made in these lanes, or is the expectation to just go back lane parking lot area, or is it front and back that you're going to make accommodations for the new homeowners?
It would only allow for back lane parking on these, like most lane parking is. I guess the good thing is there's not a lot of lots there, so there is corners there as well. So typically what ends up being a problem is when you have a real long run of these and a street with both sides of it being RL. If this was lane here, I guess you can't see the map now, sorry. If this was a lane here as well, that might create some more parking congestion, but because it's only a lane on one spot, we're pretty confident. These are all gonna have garages and driveways on this side.
And one more question, Mayor Bill, if I can. About how many houses are you planning on putting in that lane? Is there an estimate, or is it 20, 10, 15?
I think it was 20 or 22 or something like that. And
Probably about, on the east side of that lane, probably about 10 lots, and on the west, I would say 10 to 11, so in the range of 20, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thiessen? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mary. Just a question for Wade or Scott. When you do that, we're having a lot of problems with congestion of removing the snow from this year. And we got a lot of areas of these small lots of 30-foot wide lots with 24-foot wide houses on them and drainages. So the one question would be, would we have to have signs up of no parking in the front before you build? Like, once you move in, you can't park in the front in a way because for snow removal at certain times of the year. Maybe we have to change that, but by doing this process, we kind of clutter different subdivisions up quite a bit, and it costs the city more money to maintain down the road after the developer is gone and the builder. And so this is the question I have. And also about the sump drainage, is it going to be hooked directly, or is it just all the sumps coming out directly in front of the house?
Mr. Rosler?
So the sump issue will be dealt with directly through city services and
Soils, yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, neither one are of major concern. If you do have sumps to the front of the houses that ends up on the street and in the storm sewer system, if it goes to the rear of the houses in this particular case, you've got a paved lane as well, which also drains to the storm sewer. So I would make the argument that in this case, it doesn't make a large difference either way. As far as parking, the typical city standard right now is that would be likely a vertical curb which would allow parking. We would deal with, if there were any requests for no parking signs and whatnot in the front of the lots, we would deal with that through the detailed design stage with the engineering department.
Thanks very much. Councillor Rice.
Realize it's too soon for you to make a commitment, but please, please give serious consideration to you finishing the pad at the back of the house for parking. We have certain subdivisions where that isn't done. The residents didn't finish the pad. It's creating a nightmare for garbage pickup because they put their garbage can out. The neighbors come along and park too close to it. They can't get deliveries. And of course, they can't park at the back because there's no finished parking area. So I would really encourage you to think very carefully about doing the parking pad at the back. I realize it would add an additional cost to the property, but I think it would be well worth it.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I got to kind of second Helen and Councillor Rice on this one. I really am a big fan of the pads in the back because if you don't develop that area, then what you're going to have is people building their fence as far up to the back lane as possible. But I do have a question in regards to the back lane. As far as the planned width of the lane, would it be wide enough for 2 cars to pass, or would it be single lane drive-through? What's the expectation on that?
So the city standard currently, and it hasn't changed, it's been this way for probably 10 years, is a 10-meter wide lane with a 6-meter paved carriageway in the center. So 20 feet essentially is paved with another, what would it be, 7 feet on the sides available too. So it's the same as any lane that you've driven down in a less than 10-year-old subdivision in the city. As long as there's no vehicles parked on them, there's definitely room to pass too. So,
okay. And just to speak regarding the paved pad, I can say for every company is different. Ours typically has done it. It does become an affordability thing. It's a $3,000 or $4,000 touch, and these are $275,000 homes in our market. And when that becomes hey, do you want the paved pad check or do I want a deck? They're going with deck. So it's definitely something builders try to push for. It helps for grading and lots of other things from our world as well. It still becomes down to why we're trying to do this. It's an affordability issue for a lot of people. And when you're starting out, as much as pavement's nice, they would rather have the $3,000 or $4,000 for appliances or decks. So I'm just speaking on kind of what societal problems have been. It's a little bit out of our control. So, it's not that we wouldn't want to do it, Helen. It's just more of it's not our controlling mechanism to tell a homeowner what they can or can't do with their land.
Councillor Rice, question for the delegation?
Yeah, because I don't want to argue with you, but they've got to pave that pad. It's integral that they pave the pad, whether you do it or they do it. And if you're saying they don't want to do it, then what happens is you move on and we wear it. Trust me, we wear it.
So there was not a question there. That was just
okay. Sorry.
So I'm not going to ask you to respond to that, guys. Was there anything else that you wanted to highlight about the item so the council is aware of it when it comes?
I just wanted a clarification on that. Sorry, maybe I misunderstood. Are you looking for to put the parking pad in the rear, so that there is no driveway in the front? Is that kind of what you're?
Councillor Rice, are you talking about actually finishing the pad and having it paved versus gravel, or the location of the pad, or what was your?
Understand that there's going to be a front driveway as well as a lane?
No. So that's where I think, okay, there we have it. So there will be a rear lane, but the typical practice, unless there's a specific request otherwise, which heads through engineering, is that we would have all the driveways for those units would be on the lane. So there would be no pads in the front.
No, but I'm talking rear pads.
There will be rear pads, whether they're developed by the owner or the developer. But the location for the pad, we actually will likely put a vertical curb in the front, so there wouldn't even be opportunity for driveways in the front of the lots.
But then I think that's my point, Scott, is if you don't finish them, half of them aren't getting finished, and that's where the problems come in.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Any further questions for the delegation? Okay. seeing nothing else, guys, if you covered everything that you wanted to, thanks very much for the presentation. Well, you know exactly where this is on the agenda. We'll be covering it in a few minutes. So we're still in the delegation portion of our council meeting. Is there anybody else that wanted to come forward and address council on any community-related matter or any other agenda item that isn't a matter of a public hearing? Okay. I don't see anybody coming forward, so I'll close the delegation portion if there isn't anybody else that wanted to come forward and address council on any community-related matter. Seeing nobody coming forward, then I'll close the delegation portion of our agenda and we'll move on to public hearings. I'll call to order the public hearing for bylaw C 1260-2, a land use bylaw amendment. And I would look to administration for an introduction. Councillor Rice, did you have?
I was just going to make the motion to recess it.
Okay, so I'll look to administration for an introduction to start off the public hearing.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Given, members of City Council. My name is Stuart Ray, planner with the City of Grand Prairie. Bylaw C 1262 is a request to amend the land use bylaw. The subject properties shown on the screen are 10521 and the southern part of 10511 84th Avenue. Council gave first reading to bylaw C 1262 on December 9th, 2013 and established tonight, Monday, January 13th, 2014 as the date for the public hearing. Following Council's establishment of this date, administration notified surrounding landowners of the public hearing date, advertised the public hearing date for 2 consecutive weeks in the local newspaper in accordance with the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and the applicant posted public notices on the subject properties confirming the public hearing date in accordance with the requirements of the city's land use bylaw. Last Thursday, January 9th, 2014, administration received a request from the applicant to adjourn either tonight's public hearing or council's deliberation on second and third readings until February 24th, 2014. The applicant is available to speak to this request if council requires further information. For council's information, administration is not seeking any additional information, reports, studies in respect of this rezoning request. And as council will be aware, there is a recommendation from administration on the proposed rezoning. Administration understands that the issues for what the applicant is seeking are an adjournment outside of the actual report on the rezoning. So with that being said, administration seeks direction from council whether to proceed with its report on this amendment request.
Thanks very much, Ms. Wright. So we do have, council has a hard copy of a request from the landowners' representatives to postpone the public hearing or an adjournment to the public hearing. Maybe it'd be appropriate to hear from the landowners' representative just to introduce this topic. So if there's somebody here that'd like to introduce the landowner's position. If you could please introduce yourself just so everybody's aware of who you are.
Well, good evening, Mayor Gibbon and members of the City Council. My name is Dan Wong. I work with Barstow Laners and Ketchum Engineering. I'm representing the landowner on this matter. Formerly, I sat on the other side of the arc. I'm not used to being the center of the universe here, so. We are willing to wait till the end of the presentation submission portion of the public hearing before the adjournment, respecting the fact that there could be members of the public that have come out for the public hearing, and we don't want to send them home and have them come back in a future date.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so with that information, then we'll continue. I'll ask if there's anybody that was here in attendance to speak to this issue tonight. I'll ask if there's anybody that was here to speak in support of the application. Obviously, we've had one. Is there anybody that was here tonight hoping to speak in opposition to this application? Sir. Exactly. Okay. So please come forward. Mr. Wong will ask you to vacate the seat. And I see that there was one member of the public that wanted to speak to the application. And so we'll have them come forward as part of the presentation submission portion. Sir, welcome. So just introduce yourself, make yourself welcome, and
I live right, just one of the houses right behind that area. One of my question is, if you put one of those, if you put the apartment building in there, where would the driveway for them to come out of there would be? Like what kind of the street in order for them to get out without, causing any
Access problems, okay.
Yeah.
So, I apologize, sir, administration asked us a question before I asked the landowner's representative to come forward. He asked if council would like to see their administrative report. We should probably do that, and it may answer some of these questions. Certainly we can go through. Mr. Wright, does your report speak to access and egress at all from the site?
Mayor, given the report doesn't specifically speak to access egress because it's a request to rezone, and typically these are issues that are dealt with at the development permit stage. However, administration does have an understanding from the applicant of the intent for the property and access egress, plus the applicant can speak to that, I believe, more than administration if necessary, as to what the potential intent may be for the access and egress arrangements.
So at this level, they're asking to change the land from commercial to residential. It's a next level of detail where they'd say where the building would go and where the access and egress would be. That's what Mr. Wright's saying. But we do have the landowner's representative here, and they may be able to speak to that issue. We'll take it that you've raised that. Were there any other concerns that you had about this development, or any other questions that you had?
The concern is about the access to where it would be. We already have lots of traffic going up and down 83rd. We have that apartment building that's just to the west of my residence. It's pretty congested as it is, and it's hard to get in and out of there. If they, like you say, I don't know, we don't know exactly where the access to this building would be, but not only that, but then we already have enough problems with crime in that area. My car got broken into just yesterday, and having more, another building in there with a big parking lot and a whole bunch of, I don't say everybody that goes into this building is going to be a criminal. There's honest people all over the place, but that's not what, my backyard is going to border, it's toward the north there, so it's one of my concerns. I have my neighbors, I've talked to them. A couple of them couldn't make it, but just speaking on behalf of them, they have small children. Traffic, that's the other concern about it.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much for raising those concerns. We will, before we close or move on with this agenda item at all, we'll ask the landowner's representative to come forward again, and council will probably ask about those types of considerations, the ones that you've just raised. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that would like to speak in opposition or with questions about this proposal? Seeing no one, then I'd ask Mr. Wong to come forward again to speak to some of the issues that were raised. Mr. Wong.
So just in speaking to the rezoning, I'll just give a little bit of background. The applicant is the owner of both adjacent properties that we're talking about. So that's the convenience store land and the vacant field directly next to it. He wants to subdivide the land and then consolidate the parcels. The intent is to build a 4-story apartment building. The developer feels that the commercial market in the area isn't really conducive to competing with all the other commercial development that's around it. South 40 has a lot, 68th Avenue has a lot of commercial, and so does 100th Street with the Safeway and all of that commercial, those commercial buildings, which have a lot of vacancies. Not to mention that his own building there with the convenience store has a vacant space for lease. So that's why he's asking for the rezoning. The developer feels that the best use of the land is for an apartment complex because of its location. The location is walking distance to shopping. It's close to schools, close to the Eastlink Center, and right across the street from a transit stop. In addressing the concerns from from the neighborhood, particularly about the accesses. It isn't our intention to recommend a shared access that would allow traffic to flow onto 83rd Avenue. The accesses will be on Mission Heights Drive and on 84th Avenue. We really have no intention of altering those accesses that are already there. The difficulty with doing any kind of shared access is these two buildings will have two different owners. So there has been no joint access agreement that's been entered into. The idea behind the building being 4-story is, well, first of all, the existing zoning does allow our applicant to build a 4-story apartment building. He would just have to build it on top of a commercial floor. So he would essentially have a 5-story building in its place. The land isn't big enough to do that because of parking requirements in the city's land use bylaw. So he'd like to eliminate the commercial part and focus on the apartment. The traffic counts on Mission Heights Drive and 84th Avenue are between 7,000 and 17,000 per day. Our proposed apartment will add 70 vehicles at its maximum capacity. So, we're not talking about a lot of impact. This is an infill project which is going to fill in the final vacant piece of land in that entire subdivision. So as previously stated, our client is requesting an adjournment after council hears from potential members of the public. We're requesting that consideration for second and third reading be adjourned until the council meeting of February 24th. I thank you for your consideration, and again, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the presenter? Councillor Rice, you're still in the queue from prior. Do you have any questions? Okay. Councillor McLean, I see you in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, Dan. Would these be apartment buildings that are rentable, or would be individuals that would be owning them and they have decks, or like the appeal of them? That's what I'm wondering. Like, is that even foresight there to just asking to start with this, but is it just rental units, or is it going to be actually where people are going to own units?
Right. They're meant to be rental units. They're not condoized.
Okay. So the request is actually, I think, technically from our parliamentarian for recess in the public hearing rather than adjournment, because adjournment would be to close. That's what the applicant's looking for, is actually a recess to a date specific, which they mentioned in their letter. Were there any further questions for the applicant? Councillor O'Toole.
Administration, if that's possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Currently, the land that's deemed commercial property right now, can you give me an idea of what type of property could be like? Could we look at a car wash or a restaurant or even a bar? Does that fit into that property there?
Mayor Given, Councillor O'Toole, yes, certainly the commercial zoning would allow the potential for a restaurant on the site, a drive-through on the site. Also, as was indicated by the applicant, that the existing zoning would allow a 4-story mixed-use apartment building. The key difference being that the mixed-use building would basically require a commercial element to be incorporated. As the applicant indicated, the landowner does not wish the commercial element, so is seeking an amendment just to allow a 4-story building purely for residential purposes. However, in terms of height, scale, density and potential impact issues with the applicant's request, the existing zoning would allow the same to actually occur with a development permit without council's consideration as it stands. So, yeah, the intent is just for a purely residential building on this property or these two properties.
Just a follow-up comment.
Councillor O'Toole.
So there is possibility that there could be more traffic other than what was stated by Mr. Wong.
So just
apartment.
Just to clarify, under the current
under the current situation, if a person went in there and opened up a commercial product building, bar, restaurant, car wash, there could be the opportunity of more traffic being there than the current proposed apartment complex.
Yeah, Mayor Given, Councillor O'Toole, exactly. the planning department did consult with engineering services, and that issue was reviewed. And most certainly, for of course commercial uses, that the response, the feedback received from our engineering services department, that there could be significantly more traffic movements and activity associated with existing zoning permitted discretionary uses that are allowed on these properties.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Toole. Okay, so Councillor Logan.
Move that we recess this public hearing to the suggested date.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. So we won't be closing the public hearing. We'll simply be recessing it to reconvene on the recommended date, which was February 24th. That's the motion that Councillor Logan would be making. And so for members of the public, again, on February 24th, we'd be back here. Council would reopen the public hearing, and there'd be another opportunity for anybody that wanted to come forward to speak to this issue. So just to clarify what would happen if Councillor Logan's motion is adopted by council. So I certainly would accept that motion. Any discussion or debate on Councillor Logan's motion to recess this public hearing until February 24th, 2014? Seeing no one, then I will call for the vote. And that motion carries. This public hearing has been recessed to that February 24th date. And we would move on to item 6.2, bylaws C 1087-09 and C 1260-1, land use bylaw amendment and associated West Carriage Lane and Crystal Landing outline plans. Look for an introduction. I'll call the public hearing to order and look for an introduction from administration. Michael.
Excuse me, Mayor Given, if you bear with me just for a moment while I get organized to get my report up, please. Mayor Given, the item that we're looking at on this stage of the agenda is an amendment to the Northeast Area Structure Plan, bylaw C 1087-09. A resolution to amend the Crystal Landing outline plan, a resolution to amend the West Carriage Lane outline plan, and an amendment to the land use bylaw, bylaw C 1260-1. Of course, the two bylaw amendments, we are recommending that council give second and third reading. The location and land use context are identified on the front cover of your report. The subject area is the northeast quadrant of the city, essentially Crystal Landing. It's a relatively new area, has been developing over the last 8 to 10 years, is bounded on the west by the older Ivy Lake neighborhood. And West Carriage Lane, which is not yet developed, is to the immediate east of Crystal Landing. And The lands to the south of both these outline plan areas are south of 100th Avenue are currently in the county, in fact, and they are characterized by 2 mobile home parks and a wetland. And I don't know if you can see my cursor there, but the area to the east of West Carriage Lane, of course, is the county's Carriage Lane subdivision, and the area to the north is within the greater area structure plan. I'll skip ahead to the here we go. So the blue and kind of purple highlighted area on the map indicates the northeast area structure plan. And the whole purpose of these amendments is, in fact, to amend the transportation network to relocate an intersection on the future 84th Street, approximately 105 meters north of where it's currently located, and which would connect Crystal Landing and West Carriage Lane. Now, if I can take a moment in just a moment later after I go through a few more details to kind of explain that while it seems like there's a lot of amendments here and a number of documents being proposed to be amended, it's actually not that complicated at all. The important thing to understand is that the amendment to, oops, I got the wrong document up here. The important thing for council to keep in mind is that the amendment we're dealing with is to implement a recommendation of the 84th Street functional study, which, as I indicated, according to the map, would relocate an intersection on 84th Street between these 2 outline plans, that is Crystal Lake and West Carriage Lane, identified as 102nd A Street in the Crystal Landing area and Kings Road in the West Carriage Lane outline plan. However, because the area structure plan identifies a future intersection at the current location, which is about 105 meters south of what's being proposed, and because the outline plans for both these areas were planned and development actually commenced based on that alignment of the intersections, we have to amend both the area structure plan and the 2 outline plans in order to make sure everything is consistent in the end. Finally, the land use bylaw comes into play because by moving these 2 roads further north to accommodate this intersection, increased spacing, there was some impact on the existing zoning that was approved in the course of those original outline plans being adopted. The alternatives, of course, in this instant are to approve the amendments in whole or to refuse them. In terms of the analysis, the report summarizes essentially the recommendations of the functional study very, very briefly. If council does in fact have some deeper questions about the rationale or the reasoning for this recommendation, engineering staff are in attendance this evening to provide additional background. So in essence, the intent of the 84th Street functional study was to determine the long-term requirements for the existing and proposed roadway, that is 84th Street, to ensure the city would be able to acquire adequate land and design the roadway so that it would provide a well-functioning long-term arterial roadway for the lands on the east side of the city. So very much like 68th Avenue, 132nd Avenue, 116th Street on the west side of the city, 84th Street forms the fourth side of that rectangle that creates that arterial loop around the city. 84th Street, of course, is not complete in terms of it has not been built north of 100th Avenue, and it is envisioned at some point in the future, 84th Street will in fact be constructed and complete that rectangular arterial system. However, during the project of the functional study, it became apparent that at the ultimate build-out of the lands adjacent to 84th Street intersection, north of 100th Avenue, would have poor levels of service due to the close proximity of the two intersections, that is 100th Avenue and this 102nd A and Kings Road. And it would end up with turn bays and deceleration lanes overlapping so that you would have conflicts and lowered service. So as a result of that analysis, the engineering consultant, Stantec and Engineering Services, determined it be in the city's best interest, transportation-wise, to increase that spacing if possible. At the end of the day, negotiations were held with the landowners of both the Crystal Landing outline plan and West Carriage Lane, and there was agreement reached to accommodate these changes. Mayor Given, as I indicated a moment ago, because of the overlapping or the hierarchical nature of our plans, we have the municipal development plan, which of course is very high level visionary document and very generalized land use. And then the area structure plans, which are done roughly at the 4 to 11 quarter section scale. And certain planning is put into place with anticipated smaller increments of development occurring through outline plans. Obviously, to make everything work together, have all those puzzle pieces fit together, if there is a change made of something of this magnitude, then all the documents have to be changed, even though it is the net effect is a relatively modest change in terms of it's just an engineering revision. In terms of the progress of development in these outline plans, Crystal Landing is substantially developed, but it's not yet complete, so there is an opportunity to make changes to the road alignment to accommodate this intersection change without disrupting any existing land uses. And West Carriage Lane has not commenced development at all. So in looking at the planning context, the ultimate impact would be a modest reduction in the total mixture of how residential types and a reduction in some of the residential portion. But ultimately, the population, which was projected to be able to accommodate between 4,000 and 4,200 people, and the build out would not be significantly changed by this change. Unless council have more specific questions, I think the report summarizes the net effect fairly well, so I won't go into those details. With respect to the West Carriage Lane outline plan, there is one thing that I did want to draw to council's attention, and that is because the reconfiguration of the roadway and the intersection did cut through an area that was identified as municipal reserve and had implications for reconfiguring the storm pond. And perhaps I can just scroll down to that outline plan map. As you can see, there's at least 8 to 10 maps per document that need to be changed, as well as a few tables. And again, hence it gives the impression of a very complicated or complex amendment, whereas it's simply making sure, because the road transportation system appears repeatedly from map to map, we have to change all those maps in order to be consistent. So this is the Crystal Landing outline plan. And it's the West Carriage Lane I want to draw your attention to at this point. So here's West Carriage Lane. And this map, Mayor Given, shows the proposed new alignment, Kings Road, and the area identified as medium density has been under the existing zoning, the medium density actually extends down into this area here. I don't know if you can see with my cursor, which is now a modified storm pond area. So the net effect was that in section 5.2 of the outline plan, which talks about the various allocation for medium density and low density single family and so on page 9, to accommodate this revised layout, we would have to replace the number of dwelling units population 1,010 with 1,176 low density residential dwelling units for the whole outline plan area, and changing the multifamily units specifically from 593 to 193, and then replacing 4,240 with 4,091, which refers to the total population change as a result of these amendments. Now, the last part of this amendment package Mayor given has to do with the land use bylaw. And I'm going to scroll down here. And Mayor Gibbon, I am going to draw your attention to a bit of a glitch in the existing zoning map, and I have another map to put on screen here to clarify that. But I just want to make sure you understand for the actual formal amendment that Council is going to be asked to make a decision on this evening. If you don't pay too much attention to the base information on these maps, but focus on the shapes created by the zoning layer, that is the purpley blue lines. The RM area is affected in the Crystal Landing area in terms of reconfiguration. And if you look at the lower map, the proposed zoning, that RM area has been shrunken and shifted from a vertical orientation of the rectangle to from a horizontal to a vertical, in order for that 102nd Avenue alignment to work. For Carriage Lane, it's a little bit difficult to discern on these comparison mappings of the existing and proposed, but the zoning lines are correct. And if you like, I can show you the existing zoning with the existing street layout on it. Only if you're interested. So, Mayor Given, without belaboring this, administration are satisfied that the amendments to accommodate this 84th Street functional study recommendation meet the intent of our area structure plan and our outline plans, and our advice is that these be adopted.
Thanks very much, Mr. McIntyre. So, introduction from administration. We have an opportunity for questions for administration, and then we'll open it up for anybody who'd like to speak to the recommendation. Councillor Rice.
Clarification, can we take a look at that little map and tell me where it was supposed to go and now where it's recommended? I got kind of confused in the plan English.
Mr. McIntyre.
I did. You snooze, you lose.
Or if we could have the overhead camera, please.
Currently in Crystal Landing, it shows 102A Street coming up this way. This 102A Street used to end here, and actually this 85th Street here used to come down here. So the intersection used to be right about here, and it's being moved up here.
Okay, thank you so much. That was pretty simple after a 20-minute presentation.
On the West Carriage Lane, the intersection used to be down here by the pond lot. So this is the old one. The new one, it's now up in here, so.
Thank you.
So, and that was because when we did the functional study, the level of
Okay,
services.
but that's fine, thank you.
Any further questions for administration? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, it's for Mike, though. I know 84 is very crucial in the area you're talking about. It's all within the city limits now. It's been annexed, but the area to the south and area to the north is going to be a main artery. We have a lot of issues, and 84th is going to be a big road someday where the county might own the road, the city's right up to it, and we're building, we got people asking about annexation. Well, we're here now, and these are some of the issues we're seeing. So the city needs to grow. The 84th is a bright spot on that one, just bringing it out.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. So this is an opportunity for questions for administration. This is either I do have a question for either Mr. McIntyre or maybe for Mr. Kyle. I noticed that this creates a dead end on 84A. And so could either of you speak to administration's perception of that? I thought our intent was to try to limit the number of dead ends that we're creating. Norman, why don't you just take the presenter seat here? It's got a comfortable chair, operating microphones. Go ahead.
That'll actually be a cul-de-sac. The legal base that's shown there doesn't quite look at it, but that's not going to be a hammerhead dead-end road. It will be a cul-de-sac designed in there. It's just there won't be any lots fronting the back end. So there will be actually physical barriers when it's constructed to separate that road, but it's not so much a dead-end road as a cul-de-sac.
Thank you. Any other questions for administration? Councillor O'Toole?
Stay there. Mayor Given, I just have a question to ask. Norm, in the functional study of 100th Avenue, in the radar, when do you, or is there planning for 2-lane on 100th Avenue?
That
population-wise or years?
Population-wise, we're looking around probably the 79,000 to the 90,000. Some of the changes we've made now should buy us some time out there. Some of the upgrades we're doing now with the roadway, improving some of the intersections and adding the pathway along the north side will buy us quite a few years. There'll need to be a fair bit of growth on that northwest corner before we need to see a twinning of that. Again, that's subject to population growth. It's also subject to growth in the county, any residential or growth the county develops out there.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Kyle, before you leave, so another question about the ways the roads will now end under the proposed, in the Crystal Landing in particular, seems to have the more impacts. On 103rd Avenue, is that a cul-de-sac ending, or is that an access to the medium density residential?
That would be an access to the medium density residential. There probably would be a cul-de-sac bulb in order for city equipment to plow and maintain the roads. But at the end of that cul-de-sac would be the access. So that road would be also the access to the multifamily.
Would the multifamily also have direct access out onto 102nd A?
No, they wouldn't. It would only be onto 103 because putting access to to 102A being a collector road and 84th Street being an arterial, those intersections are too close together, and it would cause that intersection to fail at the ultimate development level.
So just so that I'm clear, the concern about the deceleration and turning lanes actually, are they concerns about those lanes on 84th Street, basically north-south, or are they concerns about the east-west turning and deceleration lanes?
They were concerns relating to the north-south deceleration lanes, given the original close proximity of the two intersections. The intersection treatment of 100th Ave and 84th Street, and what would have been probably about 102 Avenue and 84th Street, wouldn't have allowed us to build the full intersection treatments, and therefore would cause those intersections to fail by vehicles queuing out into the main roadway.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any further questions for administration? Seeing none, then I'll open it up for presentation submission portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward that wanted to speak to this issue. So is there anybody that wanted to speak in support of the recommended changes? Gentlemen, you've waited your turn. You might as well get a chance to. Welcome. Please introduce yourselves. Welcome.
My name is Todd DeHaan. I'm with West Carriage Lane, and it's good to be in front of you again. It's been a number of years. It's been over a year ago that we were approached by the city administration when they took a look at the functional study. They wanted to increase the intersection at 100th and 84th, and that was going to cause issues with West Carriage Lane, which had an area structure plan, an outline plan, and a zoning plan, all done. We were very much in favor of doing it, but not at our cost. So the city has graciously paid for all these changes already and have gone through the process, and it's a pretty easy change in that the intersection, like Michael said, just moved further to the north and allowed more room for the intersection at 100th and 84th, and which just made some changes that way. So just wanted to let council know that as far as the developers are concerned, as far as West Carriage Lane, we don't have an issue with it, and that the bill's already been footed by the city to make these changes.
Randy Glenn with Helix Engineering. We represent West Carriage Lane developments, as well as, in this instance, did the work for the city, redrawing all the lines, trying to make sure that we didn't lose too much yield on either side and maintain all the park space and whatnot. So if you have any questions specific to how we ended up with the lines where we did, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, look forward to your support.
Any questions for the delegation? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mary. Just a quick question. The West Carriage Lane, I really like the looks of the design. Years ago, people were talking about in the neighborhood how it would be like a buffer zone from the real small lots in the city to the Carriage Lane lots. What's going to be the regular sized lots in the West Carriage Lane? Is it going to be normal city, and there's lots of small lots? And...
Mr. Don?
Yeah, so that's a good question. As far as the zoning, nothing has changed. So you'd be talking your RG stuff there, you'd be talking your 40-footers all the way up. If market can handle it, get into the 50s. You're going to have between the storm. The nice thing about this development is this is the first one, and hence it took 2 years to get approved, is the storm, open storm all the way through the 2/4 of land. So that creates in itself a buffer of which between west of the storm and 84th, there'll be higher density, matching Crystal Landing and what used to be T&E Trailer Park.
Thanks very much, Mr. Hahn. Any other questions for the delegation? I have one, Mr. Glenn. So in the previous plan and the Crystal Landing plan, the medium density residential still had just a single access and onto, I guess, what was Mallard Way. Is that correct? One of the old.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And so that development didn't have any other additional accesses.
Let's see if the old plan is in the package here, Mr. Green.
I've called it up on the city's website, and it doesn't appear to. Sorry, maybe a more direct question or easier question.
Here we go.
Did it previously have access off of 84th?
No, it didn't. As an arterial roadway, you wouldn't get direct access typically from a residential site.
And for Mr. DeHaan, I appreciate your support of administration's request, but which of the two plans do you like better? Do you like the original plan better for your development, or you said this one's okay?
Yeah, it didn't affect us that much, and it just we had to change, make the pond bigger, so you've inflicted some cost, but that'll go to the end user. But outside of that, nothing. The second one is fine with the few amendments.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions for the delegation?
I got one more.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I noticed a lot of the pathways here for walking looks really good. You're coming across maybe 5 or 6 main roads. What's the plan with the developer for pedestrian travel to get across them roads to, you know, for walking across an island or any signage? We've got some of them in the city, and basically you could drive by your car and not know they're there until you pass them. So, I mean, you got great avenues for walkability, and you only have 5 main areas that would be accessible, like this Riding Horse Road, Kings Road. There's about 5 or 6 of them, even the Carriage Lane Road. What's your plans for that?
Yeah, so again, very good question, Councillor, and we would just follow again what the city standards designs are for sure, providing your crosswalk signage and all that kind of stuff internally. And those that are going to cross 84th, you would have pretty much your intersections with your lights and such.
This has changed. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I don't see anybody else in the queue with questions for the delegation. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Thanks for being here tonight. And thanks for working with administration on this proposal. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak in support of the application? Sure, please come on down, as they say in the game show world.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Bob Cooper with Daytona Land Corp, project managers of Crystal Landing project. And again, just basically echoing what Todd said. The city came to us with these changes, and there was a good communication and collaboration as far as what was happening there, and basically didn't drastically change our configurations with the exception of the road accesses, but it was some changes we were okay with working with. It didn't impact us too greatly as far as marketability of our layouts, and so just keep it brief, but we as well support the changes. So
thanks very much, Mr. Cooper. Any questions for the delegation? Mr. Cooper, I have one. That medium density site in the northeast corner, excuse me. How many units approximately would that site fit?
It'll depend on what we can provide on that piece of land and what the zoning will allow. There's some flexibility there, and ultimately it'll be the end user that will determine whether they do a townhouse type of a development or whether they do a walk-up. But I suppose it would be whatever the maximum could be for the RM zoning. So there is potential for some population there if the buyer at the end of the day was going to do a 4-story walk-up. But I guess that potential is there for regardless. And in a sense, this site is a little bit easier for the market to absorb, being the size that it is with the reconfiguration. So that works.
Okay. Thanks very much. I don't see anybody else in the queue to ask any questions. Thanks very much for being here. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of the proposed changes? Okay, seeing nobody else jumping up out of their seats, then I'll ask if there's anybody that would like to speak in opposition to the proposed changes. Just to make sure that we give that opportunity. Is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition to the proposed changes? I'll ask one last time if there's anybody that's here to speak in opposition to the proposed changes. Okay, seeing none, then I'll give council one last opportunity if you had any questions of administration before we close the public hearing. Councilor McLean, do you have any questions for administration? Councilor McLean?
I don't know if we directed to Michael or whoever on this one. I know we passed this tonight, and I looked over this and it looks really well, a lot of it, but say the city changes its outlook within a year or two and they haven't started this development yet. Sometimes they don't start for 7 or 8 years. Will they fall back on what has been allowed today, or if we change some rules in a year or two on pedestrian travel or mobility, can they be implemented and work with the developer, and will the developer be willing to work aggressively with those changes?
Mr. McIntyre?
Well, the short answer is our impression is that both developers want to continue working and developing their respective outline plans through subdivisions in the next couple of years. So I'm anticipating that the opportunity to make any further changes is probably, passing by at this point. If through any kind of subsequent phases of development, the developer wants to make some changes, and the city's obviously always open to entertain, design changes as long as they can be accommodated in terms of the other infrastructure. But I'm expecting that the current provisions for pedestrian connectivity, park space along both, whether it's the carriage lane or West Carriage Lane or the Crystal Landing, that the connectivity is planned quite well, I think, in my assessment. And unless there's an overt, gap or something that's been identified, I wouldn't anticipate asking the developers to do anything different.
I'm just wondering, and I'm just going to say it, and I'll be done. Sometimes these developments, I'm sure some are going to happen quick by Crystal Landing, and this one might happen sooner or later, the West Village. But the city is looking at mobility and different issues, and I think they will overlap on this. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. I have one last question for Mr. McIntyre or maybe Mr. Kyle. On the medium density node in the Crystal Landing outline plan in the northeast, is it a typical practice? I'm raising this because I noticed that it's moved from having access onto a collector road to moving to have its access on a local road. And so my impression is that we have a higher density development or area accessing what is essentially a smaller road rather than having its main access on a larger road. Does administration have any concerns about that? And are there other examples where we have medium density having its single access on a local roadway? So two questions. Can you think of another example where we have a medium density accessing a local roadway? And does this give you any pause? Whoever wants to, whichever order you'd like to.
Mayor Given, I'm going to defer to Mr. Kyle on this.
Mr. Kyle?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the one I can think of that comes off the head, it is a RM, it's a Creekside Developments. It's not their only access, but their north access to Creekside manufactured home community, as well as the Creekside multifamily sites, access a local road there, 93rd Street, just south of 92nd Avenue. It's not so much the manufactured home that's an issue, because they have actually two other accesses to the development, but it's the size of that multifamily is now, because it's been reduced, the traffic generations and volumes are quite a bit reduced. And so we don't really have concerns with it accessing the local road there, because it's a short distance. I think it's about 8 houses deep. And then they would be onto a collector road, and this is really reducing the number of trips. I know there's another one, but the Creekside one is one that comes to mind that really isn't a huge concern with us.
Would the actually the item that we dealt with earlier on 84th Avenue, would that be an example of where we have a multifamily is that a similar density that may fit on this site?
The existing multifamily is probably the existing multifamily in Mission Heights probably is of similar density and will generate similar traffic volumes, and it accesses onto a local road, and a much busier local road and a longer local road. If, in hindsight, if we had to redo that one again, maybe we'd have that entire parcel with joint accesses and one access onto 84th and one onto Mission Heights Drive. The only other thing I wanted to mention, if the amendments do not go ahead, administration will be looking at going back and amending the 84th Street functional study for whatever the ultimate decision is for that road network.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr. Kyle. Okay, so we move on to, I'll adjourn the public hearing. I'll close the public hearing. We'd move on to business arising. Councillor Rice.
Reading of bylaws C 108709, an amendment to the Northeast Area Structure Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. So open for discussion and debate. We'll have a number of motions to deal with these sort of multiple layers of planning documents. And so this is the first one. Councillor Rice gives a motion for second reading to 1087-09. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing nobody in, I'll just say this once, won't belabor the point as we go through. I do have a concern about all these plans. Just that connection of the multifamily through a local road appears to be less optimal than the original solution of having the multifamily having their access directly onto a collector road. I believe that it looks a little bit odd. The example that was mentioned in Mission Heights, we have an apartment building that goes through single-family homes, and that's their only access. I'm wary of creating another situation like that, so I'll be voting against all of the associated plans. Seeing nobody else in the queue for discussion and debate, I'll call for the vote. That motion carries. Councilor Rice?
I move third reading of bylaw C 108709.
Thanks very much, Councilor Rice. So motion for third reading. Any discussion or debate on third reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. That motion carries as well. Councilor Rice, do you want to handle all of the
Sure. I move that we approve by resolution amendments to the Crystal Landing outline plan.
Sure. Thanks very much, Councilor Rice. So we'll do Crystal Landing and then West Carriage Lane. Okay. Thanks very much. So motion on the Crystal Landing outline plan, discussion and debate. Seeing no one ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councilor Rice?
We approve by resolution amendments to the West Carriage Lane outline plan.
Thanks very much, Councilor Rice. Discussion and debate. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Excuse me, I'm just going to ask council to re-enter their votes. Thank you. That motion carries. Councilor Rice?
I move second reading of bylaw C 1260-1, an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councilor Rice. Any discussion or debate on that land use bylaw amendment to support these changes? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councilor Rice, last.
I move third reading of bylaw C 1260-1, an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councilor Rice. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading of the final piece that make all these changes? Seeing nobody ringing in the queue, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries as well. Thanks very much, Councilor Rice, for making that motion, those motions. We have another public hearing. I'll call to order the public hearing for bylaws C 1290-A Meadowview Area Structure Plan Amendment and bylaw C 1260-03 Land Use Bylaw Amendment. I call this public hearing to order. Look for a brief introduction for administration. Mr. Welton.
Mr. Mayor, I did intend on this being about 45 minutes.
I was kidding. We'll see if we can. Things don't always go as intended, Dan.
I'm never as funny as I think I am.
Am I the only one that has a whole bunch of blank pages in here? No. In my agenda? Like, and why do we?
Well, Mr. Welton, we'll have you introduce the amendment, and Councilor Rice will see if we can find the pages there for you.
All right,
see, Councilor Thiessen looks like we may have it. Mr. Welton.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This application package includes giving second and third reading to an amendment to the Meadowview Area Structure Plan, approving by resolutions amendments to the Riverstone Outline Plan, replacing maps 4 through 12, tables 2 and 3, and replacing some text, and also giving second and third reading to a land use bylaw amendment for this property. This area is located in Riverstone, which is in the east side of the city. Essentially, the area that's is in highlighted in red is an area that is currently designated multifamily in the Meadowview Area Structure Plan and the Riverstone Outline Plan and the Land Use Bylaw. The applicant proposes to change the designations of those plans from multifamily to single family to allow for single-family residential development in the concept that is identified there with the street through with single-family lots fronting onto a new road. The Meadowview Area Structure Plan Amendment involves changing the designation of the shaded area from multifamily to single family, which is required to support the proposed rezoning. And in addition, there is an amendment to the Riverstone Outline Plan. Again, the furthest north red area is the area that is proposed to be rezoned from multifamily to single family. Instead of just eliminating the multifamily area within the outline plan, the applicant has proposed that those multifamily sites be relocated to the two smaller areas identified in red. And the purpose of that was to maintain the overall density within the neighborhood to ensure that multifamily sites were continued to be available through the plan area to provide a mixture of housing types. We did circulate this to surrounding property owners. It was advertised in accordance with the requirements of the Act and the land use bylaw. We did not receive any comments or concerns from the public. And in the spirit of keeping things short, I will just indicate that the applicant is here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very much, Mr. Walton. So, brief opportunity for questions for administration. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. And does this fall under the 25% small lot allocation with, moving and changing that piece?
Mr. Walton.
I don't believe that area structure plan was actually adopted prior to that 25%. However, in this outline plan, areas that were identified for single-family lots are becoming multifamily, and multifamily areas are going to become single-family. So overall, the number of single-family lots is going to stay approximately the same. So overall, the lot counts should be the same, very, very similar, as far as how many multifamily lots or what percentage of the lots are small lots. This change shouldn't affect that.
Thanks very much, Mr. Walton. I don't see anybody else with questions for administration, so we would open the public hearing to presentation submission portion. This is an opportunity for anybody that would like to speak in favor of the proposed changes to come forward. I see some familiar faces moving from the back. Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Mayor, Bob Cooper again, Daytona Land, representing the Gateway Land Corp, which is the Riverstone project. And
I'm Greg Gramlich with Bearsville Laners Ketchum Engineering. I'm here in support of the project and just here to help with Dan Walton. I was involved in getting the maps ready and helping out putting this information together. So I'm here to help with any questions I can help answer there.
Thanks very much.
Just a couple of comments, just kind of as a background from our development standpoint. You'll notice there's multifamily parcels on that plan that are adjacent to this, and in the neighborhood there are multifamily parcels that are unabsorbed in the market. Having said that, the overall market for multifamily land is returning somewhat in the city, and so I just to clarify, this is again, as Dan said, this is not to eliminate our multifamily amount in the plan, but basically to work the plan in a little more efficient way with the land use we have, and to stage the multifamily land and time it a little bit better with the market absorption that we can kind of see moving into the future as we move through the plan and development. I guess in working with the city on it, it was also a very efficient plan from a single family standpoint, in terms of eliminating access on 84th as well, and the configuration seemed to be amenable to everyone involved. So we're just here to, I guess, give that background in support of the plan. Any questions?
Any questions for the delegation? So, Mr. Cooper, have a question, sort of similar to my concern with the Crystal Landing. The move in the multifamily down to the south seems to create another situation where there's one access, one of the accesses to that site, the one that heads north, appears to go through sort of single-family residential. And so I don't know if that's something that you can put up on the, if you either of you have a map, you can place it just on that little X right there, and we can pick it up. Get the overhead camera.
Maybe just a clarification of the site you're referring to is?
Actually south, right, there you go. Yeah, and so right there, there's that tiny little piece of roadway that goes up into the multifamily site from the south heading north. And from page 66 of the outline plan, map 5, the tentative lotting, it looks like there are a number of single-family residences that'll have will front onto that road. So will this multifamily site have other accesses, or will that be their primary and only access?
My understanding is in that particular case that yes, there would be access on the collector road. Dan can maybe speak to that. They're not shown here, but given the parcel is very large, I think that that's something that would be configured and worked out during the design stage. But perhaps we can have that confirmed.
Okay. And so in this administration, is there an opportunity to change the lotting at a future date? I guess essentially what I'm asking is there any need to force those few lots to have that access there? That's something that can be addressed at a future time.
Certainly from our standpoint, if there's a more efficient configuration as something that comes up during the design stage, I think there wouldn't be an issue working through that as long as there's a process there that we can work through. Craig, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think on an engineering standpoint, there we can definitely look at the reconfiguration there and make sure it works.
Okay. Any further questions for the delegation? Councilor McLean?
And maybe answer to Craig, but maybe administration may have to answer. Does this area, when it's developed, it's not totally developed, it's going to be, does it fall under the soil conditions now where you have to hook up your weeping tile to the main drainage? Because depending on soil conditions, they've changed that within the city. Does this area with a lot of small lots fall within that category? I'd like to know that because we have a lot of issues in areas. And I'm wondering if this, because that's a high water table in that area. And administration answer that question for me.
Opportunity for, so we'll get a, Councilor McLean will get a chance to ask administration
questions. Oh, okay.
So you want to hear if there's a response from the delegation?
Yeah.
Gentlemen?
Craig, you know.
From what I've pulled from our information and just from following, we'll be following whatever city standards are for the development in that area. I'm not exactly 100% certain in this area. We've just started the design for this area, and so we'll be checking into that. But from our previous phases, it didn't seem like we had any issues.
I know some areas did, but then as you went on, they were changing it. So I'll wait for administration.
Thanks very much, Councilor McLean. Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue for questions for the delegation. Opportunity for anybody that would like to speak in support of the application. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward to speak in support of the application? Seeing nobody come forward, then I'll ask if there's anybody that would like to come forward in opposition to the application. I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward to speak in opposition? I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll give one last opportunity. I understand there may be questions for administration. Any questions for administration before we close the public hearing, Councilor McLean?
Just one question for administration is the policy's changed on land use development because we know there's a lot of issues of flooding in basements and insurance and everything, subdivisions with sumps. Is this area soil conditions included? The administration should know this beforehand because this is a new policy now and everybody, so are we in tune and is this area in or not?
Mr. Weldon?
I have no information about that, Mr. Mayor. The geotechnical report for this area would have been done before 2006 when the outline plan was first adopted. The geotechnical report would indicate what the appropriate sump standards should be, but I have no information about what they are for this area.
I'd like, does anybody know any of this? Because we changed our standard on this.
So Councillor McLean.
2006 or not, we've changed how areas, we've learned from past mistakes.
So Councillor McLean, what's your question?
Well, I'm not getting an answer. So my question to my answer isn't being answered. Has it changed or not? Yes or no? Are they going to be hooked directly to weeping tile in this new area or not to the drainage system?
So let me clarify.
Or your front yard or back?
So let me clarify. Does the city standard allow for sump pumps to be connected to the weeping tile? To the city sewer system? I think that's what you're asking. Or are they going to be pumped outside of the house?
Yeah, and we've got new areas that they distinguish with old.
So what is the city standard on new development for sump pumps? Are they connected to the city sewer system or are they pumped outside of the house?
Mr. Mayor, I have to say this is not my area of expertise. The engineering standards are within the engineering services branch. I don't want to speak out of turn about something that I'm not familiar with.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Walton. Okay, that's the answer that we're going to get, Councillor McLean, for you today. Any further discussion? Sorry, so I will close the public hearing and we'll move on to business arising. I see Councillor Radburn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council give second reading to bylaw C 1290-A, being an amendment to the Meadowview Area Structure Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Seeing nobody ring in, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council give third reading to bylaw C 1290-A, being amendment to the Meadowview Area Structure Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on third reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council approve the following amendments to the Riverstone Outline Plan. Number 1, delete and replace maps 4 through 12 with maps 4 through 12 attached. Number 2, delete and replace tables 2 and 3 with tables 2 and 3 attached. And 3, replace text references to low density residential RL with small lot residential RS throughout the OP, outline plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Councillor O'Toole.
Mayor Given, I expressed the same concern as you had with that, the roadway access, and I was wondering, where do we put that in the planning department at this point in time? How do we make a note for that?
Well, my understanding, if I understand that we don't get an opportunity to task administration now that we're on to the voting part, my understanding though is that the lots have not yet been subdivided, and so prior to subdivision, the applicant would have an opportunity to subdivide, basically cut up the lots into a different shape if they chose, and the plan shows only tentative lotting, and so the actual shape of the lots isn't fixed at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any discussion or debate on Councillor Radburn's motion? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, pieces left.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the council give second reading to bylaw C 1260-3, being amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on this second reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. Motion carries. Councillor Radburn?
Thank you. And finally, I move the council give third reading to bylaw C 1260-3, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on this third and final reading of our public hearings tonight? Seeing nobody ring in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I believe that finally completes all of our public hearing business for tonight. We would move to unfinished business, of which we had none. And that would take us into reports section, item 8.1, amendment to the Stone Ridge Outline Plan. We did have a presentation on this in the delegation portion. Mr. Wright, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor Given. As Council will recall, the applicant and the landowner spoke to this matter earlier, and there were no landowners wanting to speak to Council at the delegation portion, so administration will try and keep this very brief in terms of its presentation. So just to confirm, the request is a very minor amendment to the Stonebridge outline plan. Council will see the outline plan area to the south of 68th Avenue, to the east of 108th Street, and generally to the east of the, to the south of the Eastlink Centre. So with respect to the proposed amendment, the request is for an amendment for a lane to go to a public utility lot. This is identification within the plan area of where the actual amendment is proposed. For Council's information, this is just a request to change a lane to a PUL. There are no changes in terms of zoning, lot standards, anything of that nature. So to identify what is currently in place in the outline plan, this is the area that's identified for the lane to serve the rear of proposed single-family residential dwellings. The request from the applicant is actually to change this to a grass public utility lot. So for consultations, there's two comments, key issues for Council's information. Responses received first from the City's Engineering Department was no objection to the closure of the eastern portion of the lane, but with respect to the western portion of the lane, there was a concern, not an objection, from engineering services that the closure would prevent any rear lane access, and therefore future landowners for these single-family dwellings would actually have to reverse out onto 66th Avenue, which is to become a collector road. So engineering services didn't object, but have indicated a concern. Administration did relay that to the applicant, and the understanding wanted to make that clear to Council. You know, there is a concern, there is an inconvenience, rather than a concern over highway safety. The second comment received was from the city's transit department, just with respect to connectivity and recommendation that 66th Avenue should push through into this site to the west, identified as institutional, and then down to 107th Street. This site to the west is part of the plan area, and there's no specific plans at this stage, but administration would address that request and that suggestion at such time as the proposal comes forward for this land to the west. So administration doesn't see any concerns about the closure of this lane or the change to become a public utility lot, and the recommendation is that Council approves by resolution the amendment to the outline plan. There are going to be some additional text table changes associated with this request that are included in Council's package, and that is the recommendation from administration to make these changes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wright. So I'm going to look for a motion to get this on. This isn't the same as the public hearings before, where we need to ask administration questions first. We'll look to have a motion to get it on the floor, and then we can discuss and debate, and if there are any questions, we could ask them then. Councillor Clayton.
I would like to move that City Council approve by resolution the amendment to the Stone Ridge Outland Plan as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on the recommendation? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question, I don't know if I can ask Wade or Stuart, because I don't see the full map, and it's changed here over time, and we got institutional here. We know that changed over time, and the map is kind of old, I think. Is there any chance of a connectivity for a pathway? Because you got the beacon site, which is going to be a part. Can Wade come up or someone answer administration that this could be, after utilities are done, it's a trail system, a walk system, instead of just grass the city's got to mow?
So
connectivity to around the area.
Through the PULs that they're
Well,
proposing to create?
Yeah, that was brought up before by different developers, that might be a good idea. I'm just wondering if because they just want to put grass and have nothing but have where you get the kids off the front of the street where it's going to be commercial and people coming in and out and Harvey's restaurant and everything, and you're going to have residents, is a chance for connectivity there.
Sure. So, Councilor McLean, I think if I can, I'll sort of field that one. I think any PUL offers an opportunity for connectivity enhancement. People can walk there. So,
Yeah, just grass.
My understanding is correct. The city would have control of the PUL. It would be up to the city's discretion if we chose to put a trailer pathway through there. I'm looking to see a head nodding somewhere in I see administrative heads nodding. And saying,
You're looking at that?
We're talking two things at this point.
Yeah.
One's the beacon site, for which we don't have.
We don't know the outlay and then how it can connect.
So just to clarify, Councilor McLean, the issue that's in front of us today is about the change of a back alley to a PUL.
Becomes underground wiring and everything. I get that part. And I'm just wondering if instead of just grass, it'd be up to the city to put in for a sidewalk or something.
Yes, it would be up to the city to put in for a sidewalk or a pathway in that back area.
When we want to work with a developer of connectivity within the area with the 2 or 3 developers. Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much, Councilor McLean. Any further discussion or debate on the recommendation? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. I'm looking for one. I think there's maybe a vote that didn't stick. There we go. Thanks very much. That motion carries. We'll move on to 8.2, the Copperwood Outline Plan Amendment. The game of musical chairs continues. Mr. Welton, would you like to do an introduction to this? Mr. Welton, I don't believe your microphone is on, so you...
Oh, actually, it is on, Mr. Mayor. I'll just closer to it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an application to amend the Copperwood Outline Plan by resolution by replacing maps 4 through 12, tables 2 and 3, and deleting a sentence relating no rear lanes. As council has seen in during the public delegation portion, essentially what is being proposed is the area on the left, that block of lots does not have a lane. They're proposing to put that block of lots to have a rear lane. Essentially the main impact is the local road to the east shifts over 10 meters because that's the width of a lane, and the multifamily site gets 0.08 hectares smaller. We consider this quite a minor amendment, and we do not have any concerns about it, and we are recommending that this be approved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very much, Mr. Welton. Councillor Clayton.
Make a motion, council approve by resolution amendments to the Copperwood Outline Plan as follows. Delete and replace maps 4 through 12 with maps 4 through 12 attached. Delete and replace tables 2 and 3 with tables 2 and 3 attached. And delete no rear lanes as proposed in the plan area from section 3.1.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So that begins it on the table. Open for discussion and debate. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. It's about development, and it's about change in land use we've done over the last term. Does Dan know this answer? Does this area for soil conditions confirm to hooking the weeping tile to the main, or just pumping it out? Because you're changing the lot sizes and how you're doing it there.
I think I heard Mr. Welton answer.
It's a different area.
Unless you have any additional information, Mr. Welton.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion or debate on the motion? Councillor Thiessen.
I just have a question for Dan. Thanks, Mayor Bill. Under our original proposed map, we had discussed earlier with the developers the parking chances of going in the lane access in the back. When we originally approved this map, were we aware that there would just be front parking? Did we just go ahead and approve the original map on the notion of street parking?
Yeah, the original outline plan showed no rear lanes. And so all of the single-family houses would have had front driveways, probably with front garages. That's the likely way the neighborhood would have been designed. As the applicants had indicated earlier, there is a shortage or an absence of narrower single-family lots with rear lanes, with rear lane access in the city, and so they're proposing it at this location. The outline plan would have been done some years ago, and the market always changes over time, and therefore the plans don't necessarily represent the market conditions when the developer has gotten to the stage that he is at now. So, you know, these plans, obviously, there's intend to be some flexibility or some opportunity for applicants to come and make changes to the plans, because it can be several years between adoption and subdivision and development. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thiessen? Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. So we move on to our added item, 8.3, Development Officer Appointments. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. As presented earlier, I have some individuals that would be, I have not their names. Just give me a second here, please. I move that council appoint Matthew Ellis, Tanis Fletcher, and Joe Johnson as development officers to exercise development authority and duties on behalf of the City of Grande Prairie in accordance with the Land Use Bylaw C-1260.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on the motion? My understanding is that these are staff that have been with the City of Grande Prairie for some time. This recommendation or this approval would give them development authority, the ability to exercise development authority under the City of Grande Prairie Land Use Bylaw, and would add to the complement of people that are able to do that in the department. Councillor Rice?
I mean, Mr. Johnson has moved from planning.
My understanding is Mr. Johnson has moved from planning. He's now the supervisor of the Development Services Department, which is, thanks from the city manager, which has actually been not amalgamated, but is a part of planning. So planning and development are now together, where prior they were separate. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Rice. Any other discussion or debate? Questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that handles all of our reports business, and we finally get to move into committee business. Councillor O'Toole, I think you're first up with Combative Sports Commission minutes from December 4th.
Yes, I apologize for not being on the ball there, but there's been a lot going on today, and I had the wrong thing queued up. So I would move that council receive the minutes of the Combative Sports Commission being held December 4th, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Did anyone note anything out of order in the minutes? Seeing nothing, then I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole, anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes from that meeting?
Yes, there was concern and discussion about the amateur fighters being not held in Grande Prairie, actually in all of Canada. The federal government come in here earlier last fall and put a stop to all amateur MMA events. There has been some provinces that have gone ahead and formed associations and have gone forward and been accepted by the federal government. And I'm working very hard with the Alberta government as well to pursue that so we can hold these events here in Grande Prairie. We've got approximately 400 competitors in the Grande Prairie area, and they're all itching to get in the ring.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion, or, sorry, excuse me, we've handled all the motions coming out of that. We move on to 9.2, the Pursuit of Excellence Committee from December 5th. Councillor Clayton, I believe you handled that committee, is that correct? Yes. Councillor Clayton?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to make a motion to present the minutes as presented for the Pursuit of Excellence Committee meeting held Thursday, December 5th.
That is it, Councillor Clayton. I'm sorry, I think there was something that went off with your microphone there. I don't think it was on, so if you could just make the motion again. So
I'd like to make the motion for council to accept the minutes from the Pursuit of Excellence Committee held Thursday, December 5th as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, anything that you wanted to highlight from that meeting? Any activity?
It was a great meeting. There was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of applicants. Unfortunately, there wasn't as much money as normal that we were able to distribute, but going forward, look forward to a lot of applicants again, and hopefully are able to fund a lot more applicants in the future.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So we'll move on to 9.3, the Community Growth Committee meeting from December 10th. Councillor O'Toole, I believe that was your meeting as well?
Yes, correct. Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee meeting held December 10th, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Set of minutes look okay? Seeing nobody ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, if I can just speak on one subject. We had Dan Piercy and Shauna Miller from the Chamber of Commerce do a presentation at that particular meeting in regards to a sign that was presented as well today. And it was a digital billboard that could be used in emergency type situations to be located near Center 2000. And that happens to be in the provincial highway area. So if I could, I'd like to, and I will, I've moved the council direct Mayor Given to provide a letter of support for the Chamber of Commerce for the initiative of a digital billboard project to be forwarded with an application to the provincial government.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Open for discussion debate. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would like to move that we table this motion. At the same committee meeting, there was another motion. We directed, the committee had directed administration to look at these signs as they relate to public lands. And I think that by supporting this application, before we develop a policy regarding these signs on public lands, I think it's putting the cart before the horse. And so I think we should table this motion for a later date.
So certainly tabling motion can come at any time. So if you'd like to make that a motion to table.
Yeah, I would move that we table the motion.
Okay. So I think we need to be a little bit more specific in terms of when. And so if you wanted to reference the administrative report or a specific date.
I would move that we table the recommendation until a report is given to council by administration regarding the use of digital signs on public lands.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. So I think that's specific in that it says there's one action that we want to happen first before we consider this. So open for discussion debate on the motion to table. And there's a number of people in the queue, and so we'll be speaking to Councillor Tarrant's motion to table. Councillor Rice?
Defeat the tabling motion. If we begin to delay making decisions because, maybe we should have this or that or something else in place, we will stagnate. I don't believe that there is any reason at all to delay the decision on this. It's not our land. We're just simply asking the mayor to support it. We knew this was coming forward for several months. And as I say, if we start saying, gee, maybe before we do that, we better do this, that, or the next thing, we will stagnate.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mary, and I will be supporting this. Number one is because over the last year, we've seen about 68th Ave for East Link Center. We've seen about Downtown Association, Chamber of Commerce now from the hospital, and of course, we're not even got anything new coming into our main entrance of our city. I will support this tabling.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Logan.
I would speak against the tabling motion. I think Alderman Rice really covered off the issues, but I would like to underline that this is a matter that is just simply asking for the mayors to signify the support with a letter. We have no other say in the matter at all, and we will look sort of foolish if it proceeds without council being in support of it. It's just a necessary thing.
Councillor Clayton.
I'd like to echo the thoughts of Councillor Logan and Councillor Rice. I believe that it would be show a lack of support for an organization that does a great thing for our city. I think that the process, as Mr. Piercy pointed out, will be very long in regards to the land use with the province, and this simply is showing support for a project that will be greatly used on many levels in our community. I do agree that with Councillor Tarrant's comments that we do need a use of public lands bylaw. However, a letter of support will not inhibit this process at all.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor O'Toole.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I will not be supporting this tabling. I do feel that this is just a letter from the mayor to the government of Alberta, and I do agree that Councillor Tarrant has got a valid point there in regards to coming up with a process, but I would still like to see the process of the chamber having a letter written on behalf of the mayor to the provincial government be put ahead. Thank you.
Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I'm the one who tabled this, or I put it up for a motion to put it off until administration goes on. In fact, ironically enough, I am in favor of the sign. I think it's a great idea. I think it's great for the city. I guess I'd just like to ask administration where, if anyone can answer, where we're at as far as like looking into maybe development of a strategy for how we're going to utilize those public lands, which is the reason why it was tabled to begin with.
So is there anybody in administration that can speak to how long it would be before administration would bring forward that report? Councillor Logan?
Point of order, I think that this kind of debate and discussion is not allowed on a motion to table.
Appreciate that, Councillor Logan. I think this one question in terms of the relevance of tabling, I think if administration can answer how long it would be, I think that that's pretty relevant to whether someone would support tabling or not. So if administration has a response to that. Community Growth Director?
Can I do a point of order?
Councillor Rice?
I'm not sure of the relevance of us wanting to draw a policy as to whether we're going to allow digital signs on our land when we're talking about a letter to support an application to the provincial government to put a sign on their land. They're two totally, like, I can see our land, but this has nothing to do with our land. And I mean, I heard the question is how we're going to utilize that land. We're not going to utilize it. It's not ours.
So I'm going to take Councillor Thiessen's question to administration because the motion to table was dependent on that information coming back. If we don't have any idea of how long it may take for that information to come back, we don't know how long we're tabling for. So, Community Growth Director.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have a specific time frame for coming back with a report on this. We do have a use of public lands bylaw. And we would be looking at an interpretation of that bylaw in terms of this request.
Thanks very much. Okay, any further discussion or debate on the motion to table? I'm going to speak in support of the motion to table because ultimately I will be voting against this motion. I certainly do want to support the chamber and would be willing to consider alternate locations, but I don't feel that I can support this one, so I will be supporting a motion to table that would give some opportunity to come up with alternate locations. Councillor Rice?
Suppose that we hadn't
Councillor Rice, if you want to put your microphone on.
Suppose we hadn't messed up in writing the motion, then the intent of the committee was to pass this recommendation, right? It passed at the committee level, and because of the fact that we messed up in the writing of the motion is what brings it back here. I'm just not sure that...
Councillor Rice, I guess for me, I don't believe that committees can direct the mayor to write something on behalf of all of council. I believe only council can direct the mayor to write a position on behalf of all of council. So I think that's a standard principle. Committees can't direct an action of the city. And so for something like this that expresses the city of Grande Prairie support, all council members have to have an opportunity to vote on that motion.
Okay.
Councillor Clayton. Seeing nobody else in the queue, then I'll call for the vote on the motion to table until administration can bring forward a report on the use of public lands. Call for the vote. One more, thank you. And that motion does not carry, so we'll move back to the original motion for a letter of support. Any discussion or debate on that motion for a letter of support? I'll take an opportunity to speak. Obviously, the mayor writes a letter on behalf of council on whatever the motion of council is, but I'm going to speak against this. I believe that council, time and again, has protected the Muskogee Park corridor from the intrusion of billboard advertising. I believe that there are other fantastic locations in the community, although they may not be directly adjacent to Center 2000. I think there are other good locations that would provide high visibility, good advertising for chamber businesses and still meet the public safety intent that was expressed in the application. I would love to work with the chamber to identify some of those, and if some of them are on city-owned property, that would be great. I will not support any billboards in the Muskogee Park corridor at all. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to echo some of those concerns. My motion to the table was really looking at, when we can identify some of these other lands that would be maybe available. I do have some concerns with the specific location here, and I thought that, once administration comes back with a report detailing some of the public lands and kind of some policies around that we would maybe have some other options that we can discuss, and we can look at all land areas in as a whole. And so I will not be supporting this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will not be supporting this motion as well. Two reasons is number one is location. We can just pick out of the hat and, oh, that'd be good. And I believe with the Mississippi Park and also taxpayers' dollar. Over the last year, they talked about 4 or 5 locations in the city and not necessarily viability or visibility. Our main entrance, new annexation, we got some things coming, which this is in discussion. And I do believe we should just pinpoint one area. We may have 2 or 3 areas we'd like to select better. Thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
I also probably will not be accepting this proposal for the mayor to write a letter. I think it's a logical idea for the chamber to want to put the billboard as close to chamber headquarters as possible. Center 2000 is a tourist area, but again, in echoing Mayor Bills, Councillor Tarrant's, and Councillor McLean, their sentiments on trying to protect the Muskogee corridor, as well as trying not to open up a can of worms for future developments of these types, especially along our parkways. I would rather wait and see what administration can bring forward to us so that we don't see these cropping up everywhere. We have green spaces and low visibility areas as it is with high traffic volumes.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Clayton.
I will speak in support of this motion. I think that if you look at the map, it's not impeding any visual sight lines of the beautiful creek system. I think that if you were to work with the Chamber of Commerce, they would probably be willing to tweak the exact location of the sign. This truly is a letter of support. It's not using any taxpayer dollars. It's not our land. It's a private enterprise entity trying to do something that benefits the community in regards to safety, in regards to visitors, and I commend them for going ahead with a great opportunity.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing nobody else, Councillor Toole.
Support of this project. I do feel that the amount of traffic that will be going by that sign will be the purpose for that sign, to get the most people to see, whether if there's a code yellow. And like was mentioned just prior to my conversation here, it can probably be located in a site that's not necessary, can be moved around to some degree, maybe off one side of the road to the other, but I still think it's just a support of a letter to place a sign in provincial highway area. That's all I'm asking.
Thanks, Councillor Toole. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Last time. Okay, seeing nobody else ring in, then I'll call for the vote. Vote in favor is a vote in favor of the letter of support. And I'll call for that vote now. Thank you. That motion carries. So we'll move on to 9.4, Community Living Committee from December 10th. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the council receive the minutes of the Community Living Committee meeting held December 10th, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Did we get everything right? Looks like we did. I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Gibb. Just an overview of the committee's agenda. We received delegation from Ken Prairie asking for support for Broadway Live Broadway. We asked administration to bring back a report as to possibilities, and that is coming actually tomorrow to our committee meeting. Second was Jubilee Park Enhancement Plan. We talked about actually previous council had looked at some things at Jubilee that maybe we need to change or enhance. And the administration came back with a report saying that let's develop an enhancement plan the committee and council can look at, and then we can look at it becoming part of budget next fall. So, and thirdly, the aquatics needs assessment report was tabled. The consultant was here to speak to it. We received the information, but we asked them in to bring back to council committee of the whole this time. A consultation plan, or how can we then inform the community about what's in the report. And that will be coming, that is already scheduled, as council realizes, I think on the 20th of the month. Thank you, Mayor Given.
Thanks for covering those highlights, Councillor Radburn. We move on to the 100th Anniversary Committee from December 16th. Councillor Rice.
Move that council receive the minutes of the 100th Anniversary Committee meeting of December 16th, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Did anyone note any errors or omissions, anything we missed in that set of minutes? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Rice, you had one.
I move that council amend the 100th Anniversary Committee Special Projects Events funding criteria to exclude local residency requirements, and further that the process for evaluation of applications be referred to the 100th Anniversary Executive Committee comprised of Councillors Wright, Thiessen, and O'Toole rather than the Arts Development Committee.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Do you care to speak to the motion?
Just speaking to it, the difficulty we had is that the Arts Development Committee, it created a convoluted process in terms of them being brought up to speed on the goals and the big picture for the 100th anniversary.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Rice, anything else you want to highlight?
Just I think the excitement for the 100th anniversary. We had a great kickoff New Year's Eve at the Muskosipi Park. The Soapbox Derby is set for May 31st. There'll be 50 high-resolution photos displayed along what we're calling Memory Lane, which is 100th Avenue. There will also be a smartphone app where you can swipe your phone and it will give you the history of that building over the last 100 years. The 100 Years of Transportation show is starting to take shape. The homecoming is, of course, set for the August long weekend. There's a 100-day Art of the Peace event planned at the Art Gallery, and that's just a very few of the things that are happening.
Thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Obviously, 2014 started off with a bang with the New Year celebration. Muskosipi Park did a great job of ringing in the New Year and ringing in the 100th anniversary. I know that excitement will continue throughout the course of the entire year. Thanks to you and your committee. Councillor O'Toole, you had an item from 100th anniversary as well that you want to highlight.
Given on the New Year's weekend, there was the sled dog championships that was held here, and we had competitors from Whitehorse, Invermere, Tickish, Yukon. There's 22 different competitors from as far away as Winnipeg, Manitoba, and covered basically all of Alberta, all of BC, Northwest Territories, and the Yukon. They did a thing called Ski Jor, where you're actually cross-country skiing behind dogs. That was pretty cool to see. There was 4 dogs, 6 dog, and 10 dog, purebred and mixed breed. And I got to tell you, a fellow from Whitehorse, his name is Armin Johnson. He was a fellow that won the sled that they had for a prize.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. So we move on to the Community Safety Committee from December 17th. Councillor McLean, I believe that was your set of minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that Council receive the minutes of the Community Safety Committee meeting held December 17, 2013.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing nobody ring in, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that Council approve the street lighting standard study request for proposal DMD and Associates Limited with $80,000 in funding from the Future Expenditures Reserve.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing nobody in the queue, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. Okay, Councillor McLean, I believe you had one other item of business that a few folks have stuck it out all night to hear about.
I'm going to announce it. No, I move that Council approve the suggested short and intermediate term QE2 hospital parking improvement strategy with funding from the Future Expenditures Reserve.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. So open for discussion and debate on the motion. Councillor Logan.
Thank you. I believe that we had some good questions asked of us this evening. I believe we didn't show that we have the answers. I think we need to have the answers as to what impact there is going to be on the new parking strategy on the residents in the area. And therefore, I'd like to move that we table this item to an appropriate time when we have that information.
I wonder, Councillor Logan, I appreciate the intent. Maybe we could table it back to committee, or I wonder.
I should have actually said what entity rather than table it back to committee.
Okay. Okay.
But specifically to get the information on the impact of the neighborhood.
Thanks very much. So, Councillor Logan, motion of referral, would that be all right with you? We're essentially saying this issue isn't ready to be decided tonight. It needs to go back to committee for further discussion before being decided. Is that the intent? Well, yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Logan. So, Councillor Logan is making a motion of referral, which is in order. And so we would have discussion debate on that motion to refer, just for the folks that have stuck with us all night. Essentially, as I said, Councillor Logan's motion would have the effect of council saying, Okay, hold on. We heard from the residents and there's questions that need to be answered. Let's send it back to the committee so some more work can happen on this or some more discussion can happen on this. And nothing would be happening at this time at the council level. No changes would happen until the committee, if they so chose, referred it back to council with some direction. So nothing would be happening. No changes would be happening. We'll go back to committee for more discussion. Councillor McLean.
And I'll be in favor of the referral of Councillor Logan. I lived in this area for over 10 years. I know we talked about issues within the committee when it came about, and because I lived there for years, they were brought up, and all of a sudden, bang, it's on our plate. And I know we can refer it and discuss it more, but I think we should be really looking at the rationale, how some of these things move maybe a little quicker than they should. I'll be voting for Councillor Logan's referral.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radburn.
Given, I will also support the motion to refer. What I think is we missed the mark. We missed the mark on the consultation and informing the residents in the area before it came to a council meeting. So by referring it back to committee, hopefully we can ensure that that's taken care of appropriately.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor McLean.
I'm just going to say this, and I hear you a bit, but I remember the committee speaking about open houses and talking to the residents, but it seems there's a big loop there. And I know it's going to be referred back to committee, but that chance is going to come. That's all I'm going to say.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Seeing nobody else in the queue, I'll close debate and we'll move on to the vote. Call for the vote. Thank you. That motion to refer this item back to committee is successful, so this will show up again at a future city committee meeting where council committee members will have an opportunity to discuss that. Those are public meetings and they do take public input, so if you wish to put your thoughts down on paper and submit them, you can certainly do that. If you wish to attend the committee meeting, you can certainly do that, and I think administration has heard loud and clear that the residents need to be informed before this issue moves forward. So I appreciate, for those members of our audience that stuck it out, I appreciate your patience tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed our meeting. But I appreciate the fact that you made the time to be here tonight. This issue will be referred back to committee to be discussed further. So we'd move on to the Corporate Services Committee from December 17th. Councillor Logan.
Move the council receive the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Motion for the December 17th minutes. Did anyone note anything out of order in that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. Councillor Logan, anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
We have absolutely no items to come forward to council, seeing as everything was handled in such a quick and speedy fashion. Well, no, I guess because there was nothing on the agenda.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. So we'll move on. We had no items of correspondence today. Our delegation business, I believe, we had two delegations that were speaking about development issues, which were dealt with on our agenda. Our other delegation was in relation to the QE2 parking. Were there any others that I missed? If not, I believe that all of our delegation business was handled. So we'd move on to notices of motion, which we had none, and into council member reports. We'll start with the AUMA. Councillor Rice.
Met with Minister Ken Hughes, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and stressed the need to move forward quickly on getting the process on the amendments to the Municipal Government Act started, and urged him to flip the proposed process around. Right now, it's that the detail is being decided and then the Premier's Council will set the principles, and that seemed kind of backwards to me, and I suggested they set the Premier's Council to set the principles, and then the department could move in and do all of the detailed regulations. Right now it's getting bogged down in that kind of detail, and it's very urgent that we move forward.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. I believe we had Center 2000 an update. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, I myself, Councillor O'Toole and Councillor Logan had the opportunity to attend our first Center 2000 meeting back on December 11th. At that time, it was mainly just a board orientation and get to know you and figure out what's going on inside and around the building. There were some definite issues that we had spoken about already on committee level in regards to the roof structure of the building, as well as some of their concerns about staying within Center 2000. All in all, though, it was a friendly and jovial meeting, of which we had the opportunity to elect a new president of the Center 2000 board, and that would be Councillor Kevin O'Toole.
Councillor Kevin O'Toole taking over the chair of the Center 2000 board. Thanks very much for that update. Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Thiessen, I think you also had library board. You had a library board meeting.
Yes, it was also another eventful day the day before, where again I attended my second library meeting, and again we've been going through the painstaking process of policies and procedures and amendments to policies and procedures and dealing with what is relevant and what is no longer relevant and what needs to be added into the library's policies and procedures. It was also at that meeting that to much of the board's dismay, we lost our acting chair and president of the library board as acting chair Wade Nellis stepped down and will continue to serve on the board as we seek out a new chair and president for the library. So out with the president, in with the president. It seemed like a revolution in Egypt all in 2 days here in Grande Prairie. So.
Who knew library board meetings were so exciting? Well, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Nighthawk Recreation Area, Councillor Clayton.
I attended my first Nighthawk meeting. It was a cold, snowy, awful drive, but I went, and it was a very informative meeting. Nighthawk is having a great season so far. There's obviously lots of snow. They are done snowmaking. I was there yesterday skiing with my family, and the snowmaking machines are off, so hopefully that lasts. They have a lot of things going on right now in regards to their master plan implementation, as well as in the process of renewing grant applications. And they've had some issues in regards to mechanical repairs and normal day-to-day issues, but I think overall things are going very well, and they're looking forward to a great season.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. And Councillor O'Toole, I think you're our last update from council committees on the Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I have an update on the Philip J. Currie Museum. The tower crane that was up for the last 5 months is now taken down, and a mobile crane has been put in place. The steel will be going up for the roof, and within a couple of months, you should see the roof on there. And when the roof becomes apparent, I want you to know that this company, a magazine called Azure, has made the Philip J. Currie not only one of the top new design looking buildings in the province or in the country, in the entire world. And it's highlighted in this magazine. It's amongst some very, very fashionable buildings in Germany, Italy, and throughout China and Japan. Also, we had a building committee meeting, and the company that will be doing the inside structures of detailed displays is a company called Reach and Peach, and they have made displays for museums such as the National Museum of Natural History in the Washington, D.C., the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame in Parry Sound, Ontario, the Virginia Museum of Natural History in Martinsville, Virginia, and we got more here, and yeah, it's looking good. So R&Ps will be going out, and designs. And I just wanted to let you know that tickets for the gala, which is in August 7th, will be going on sale. Actually, they have gone on sale. There's approximately 500 plus tickets sold. And There's about 1,000 available. And what can I sneak you by? Canadian tenors. Fran Drescher will be there. There's there's a few other ones that I don't really feel that I need to let out of the bag. Tatum O'Neill, if you're happen to know who she is, she'll be there. Matthew Gray Gubler will be there. And there's some others that have said. I want to bring this up, this building design. Matt Vavrick is our paleontologist now, and he went to a national paleontology convention. Can't see that being very exciting, but there was people from all over the world that wanted to introduce themselves. And some of these people were Matthew's mentors back 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they wanted to make sure that they knew that this was going to be something huge for Canada and the world. And so that's pretty impressive people to give us the thumbs up. So thank you very much, Mayor Given. That's my report.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. So we'll start with Councilmember Roundtable. Start with Councillor Rice.
As I mentioned, the kickoff for the 100th anniversary down at Muskosipi Park, and I just want to commend Shelley Sorensen and Carla Wells for the great job they did. We were trying to have all our 100th anniversary events be something unique to Grande Prairie or something that hadn't been done for a long time in Grande Prairie. And of course, the kickoff was important. We follow that, and the fireworks were to music. The fireworks show was choreographed. The choreography with music. So that was some great entertainment with Dwayne Steele and also a children's entertainer that was a huge hit with the children. And wagon rides, horse and wagon rides, and the dog sled was there, and Aquaterra was the prime sponsor, and they had their big van there. So a great family night. It was cold, but there was a good crowd out there.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I guess leading up to Christmas, I had several events that I was able to take part of. First being the joint city and county council meetings at Legends Lounge at the Coca-Cola Center on the 12th. Several of my fellow councillors were there with me to attend that event, and also to break some bread with our fellow county councillors. Follow that up with the day after, early in the morning, I went to the Day Bar Arena and read The Grinch Before Christmas to some of the preschool kids there. It's a book of my own, one of my favorites. I used to read to my son all the time, so I was glad to share that with other people's children, and they seem to like it as well. From there, on the 17th of December, I participated in the Grande Prairie Friendship Center's senior holiday dinner. Several other council members were there as well, to which they were unfortunately given the privilege of hearing me sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer out loud for Dreamcatcher, which is hanging in my bedroom as we speak. From there, I attended some open houses, with the one being on the 19th of December, down with, I guess, one of our, Wayne Drysdale. Thank you very much. I was had a little bloop there on my phone as far as dates go. And finally, on the 21st of December, I took part with Councillor Tarrant in the GP driveway dig-out, where we gathered up some snow angels and dug out several neighborhoods in the city of Grande Prairie. And to that extent, I'd like to thank all the volunteers that came out. I could have just been Rory, myself, and his wife, because I know his wife would have supported him come heck or high water, and I was definitely behind Rory too. But for all the concerned and caring Grande Prairie citizens, once more, I'd like to say thank you very much for helping us out in clearing all those driveways for the emergency snowfall that we had and the removal that needed to be done. That being said, I'm done.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Logan.
It's incredibly busy over the December and January time period, but none of it was to do with any city business, so I don't have anything to report.
Thanks very much, Councillor Logan. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I did attend quite a few events, but since tonight I spoke quite a bit, I won't get into them. I just want to say a couple things. Throughout Christmas, we all had lots of talk and discussion about lots of snow in the city, but we still had our power on. And the men and women for the city worked very well, and the new changes developed and are clearing the roads. 2 subdivisions, or 12 subdivisions in 2 days, where it took 3 weeks from the old model. So I'm very impressed by the men and women and staff of City of Grande Prairie. And as for emergency number and shoving out driveways, we have staff that do this as well, very well. And there was one person that needed a number. My wife gave them the emergency number in 1 hour. Her husband had a heart operation, and they were there 1 hour later clearing out her driveway. So the city's on top of it, and it's only going to get better. And I just want to say I look forward to 2014, working with all of you to make our city very much stronger. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Radford.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Given time, I'll eliminate a number of the events that I attended as a part of council and just highlight a few. December 12th, really exciting public school announcement for the public school district at Aspen Grove. Volunteer Services Bureau had a lunch to interact with council, and I had attended my first Art Gallery of Grande Prairie board meeting. 13th, I had my Downtown Association luncheon. I also attended the Grande Prairie Friendship Center board and elders holiday dinner. I mentioned only that I had the opportunity to bring council greetings from council at that event. Aquaterra shareholders meeting on the 18th. December 19th, Lois Harper's retirement. Pleased to be able to attend. She's been the most valuable staff member and will be hard to replace given her experience, particularly with larger projects in the city. So wish Lois all the best in her retirement. Tender opening on the 20th, tender opening on the library expansion. And then Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association Board last week, and I attended the Lux Kitchen Bath and Lighting grand opening. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radford. Councillor Terrence.
You're on. Good. On December 12th, I as well attended the joint city council, county council meeting. It was great to meet with our fellow county councilors and to get to know them and to just on the surface, chat about a few issues. It was great. On the 17th, I attended the Grande Prairie Friendship Center dinner, and it was good to meet with people in the community that belong to that organization. On the 18th, I was at the Aquaterra shareholders meeting, and it was good to get some more information in regards to some of the activities that are taking place there. I also attended later that day, the Canadian Home Builders Association had a function, and it was good to go there and meet with some representatives of that industry. I went to the Wayne Drysdale's open house on the 19th. It was good to chat with our transportation minister now, and I know he's looking forward to working with us and on several challenges in the future here. On the 8th, I attended the Wapara Quarter planning meeting, where we were updated on some of the activities. The plan has been submitted to the government, and now the planning commission is now going towards more of an implementation group. So if the government does approve the plan, then we're going to be working with the respective municipalities to see that the plan gets carried out. And that is the end of my report.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Clayton.
I also attended many meetings that other councillors have attended. I'll just quickly go through a few. The joint city council and county council meet and greet was a nice opportunity to meet some of the county members that I hadn't met in the prior. I also attended the shareholders meeting for Aquaterra, which was a very informative session with great information for future that lays ahead for that organization. I attended Wayne Drysdale's open house, as well as Everett McDonald's open house. And I, after coming home for family holidays, pulled into the driveway at 9:30 just in time to see the great fireworks display. So thank you to everyone that was involved for that. It was excellent. And as well, I attended this past week the SPCA board meeting, and on a personal note, on December 11th, attended my first Swan City Rotary meeting after a hiatus of a couple of years. So it was a good month. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I attended many of the items that were brought up, but I will advise you on the 11th of December, I also attended the Christmas reception, which was put on by the Community Foundation. They awarded checks and scholarships to students. Later that evening, I attended the Neighborhood Safety Teams Association's Christmas party held at City on 99th. On the 12th, I was also at the Minister of Infrastructure meeting and the announcement of the school. I had lunch with many councillors here as well at the Volunteer Services. I attended Philip J. Curry Dinosaur Museum Building Committee meeting out at the job site, and I also attended the County City joint meeting at the Legends Lounge. On the Friday, had a tender opening as well, and I attended the weigh-in for the MMA event that was held on the Saturday, and that was also spent all day out at the event getting ready. What else do I got here? I attended the Friendship Center December meeting and yearly Christmas party, and a great meal served by great people. And on the 18th, I attended the Army Navy Army Cadets Air Force Christmas dinner, and I was the guest of honor and spoke about the 100 years of the city being a municipality, and explained some of the people that I had family that were part of the original charter coming to Grande Prairie when the city became a city. What else? I did a number of sits at the Salvation Army, ringing the kettlebells at Costco and Superstore. I also attended Everett McDonald's MLA open house. And what else? I was at the Earl's restaurant the night before it burnt down, but it wasn't me. Just to let everybody know. And yeah, actually it was a high school reunion meeting. So other than that, there's a few other things that I did, but I think they're all covered. So I'll let you go with that.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. So I believe the majority of items that I attended have been covered. I'm going to only mention two. The first is Lois Harper's retirement at the city. Lois has been a long-time employee. I know that Councillor Radburn mentioned it, but certainly I want to echo Councillor Radburn's comments. Lois has had a huge impact on the city as a whole, in particular its cultural and historical community. And the number of events that Lois has been an active participant in, small or large part, really can't go unrecognized. Lois has left her fingerprints in many physical developments in the city, like the Montrose Cultural Center, the Grande Prairie Museum, and other places. But she's also left her fingerprints in a lot of the activities that have happened in the community over the last while, and ultimately that's where memories are made and people's impressions of a community are made. And so I want to give my hearty congratulations to Lois for her years of service with the city and recognize a career well spent. The other item that I wanted to cover was just one that was slightly different. I had an opportunity to welcome all the Rotary Exchange students to City Hall. I invited them all here to City Hall to have a little bit of a chat about the City of Grande Prairie, how our local government works, and discuss with them how local government works in their area. It was a great opportunity to expose these youth who are in our country experiencing things firsthand and learning about our country to the importance of local government, and we just want to highlight that there were some fantastic questions, and I really received some interest in the youth to go home and get involved, and so I just wanted to highlight that because it's something council might not be aware of. Other than that, I won't cover any of the other items. I think they've all been covered. There's our first meeting of 2014 out of the way. Hopefully we'll look forward to a successful year. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll call ourselves adjourned.
Bless you.